welcome back to another episode of Hyper Heroes here on Hyper RPG. Very excited to be here to talk about some news. This is actually the first episode where we're actually going to be talking about news.
Yeah.
Talking about
So
stuff.
is this like episode 1, season 2?
This is episode 2, season 2.
Okay, I'll take that.
Well,
I'll take that.
last week's episode was technically season 1. We talked about our most anticipated movies.
Episode one, yeah.
Season 2,
What were
episode
they?
1.
Yeah.
Yeah, what were they?
It's a long
Let our
list,
guests
but our
know.
favorite,
What were they?
So my favorite movie of superhero movie of last year was.
Oh, the week before you're talking about?
Oh no! Oh,
No,
we're
what's
talking
what's your
most anticipated movie? Incredibles 2.
Okay.
Infinity War.
Black Panther was mine.
Okay.
What would yours be,
Wait,
special
is
guest?
it only superhero movies?
We
Well,
had
no,
we
we
had two lists.
We had two
and then we
lists.
had
We had the most anticipated superhero movie, and then on another list, which was consisted of 10 movies instead of
Yeah.
just ordering 5 movies. We had most anticipated movie.
So
Period.
my most anticipated movie, non-superhero, is Creed 2.
Mine was Solo.
I think mine was A Wrinkle in Time.
I think so.
Was it? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yours was A Wrinkle.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go with Black Panther and A Wrinkle in Time.
All right.
Ooh,
Okay.
there
Very
you go.
nice.
Hector, would you like to
choices,
introduce
good
our
choices.
guest?
I would love to introduce our special guest who just picked the
Hello.
same movies that I did. He is the one of the brain children over at Skybound.
Brain Children.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
That's
The
your
look
official
that he
title.
gave was like,
That's your
"What?"
official title, Brain Children.
my
No.
mother, I was born and my mother was like, brain child.
No, he's got an official title. He'll tell us what it is right now, but he works in digital content. But he is my good buddy. Michael Cruz is here. So give it up for
Hello.
Cruz.
Cruz.
Been
Like
trying
Madonna.
to get him on the show for a while.
Like Penelope, not like Tom.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, with the Z.
Because Cruz has got great opinions, and he's one of the muckety mucks over at Skybound. But just to preface this, obviously his opinions do not reflect those of Skybound or AMC or any of that stuff. Obviously, we're just hanging out. We're having a good time.
So
But
you're a
Cruz-
private entity. You're not a company.
I am.
Yeah.
Well, I
That's
also
good.
I also do technically have a company for when I
Oh,
freelance.
that's
Oh,
right.
very
That's
cool.
right.
Well,
Okay.
Cruz, what's your official title
Yeah.
at
My
Skybound?
official title is the Director of Digital Programming.
Okay.
Director of Digital Programming.
Which I kind of made up.
Yeah.
I don't know what I still
That's
don't
how
know
you
what
get
it
yourself a
means.
job.
Yeah,
You make up a
that must be
position.
nice.
You
You
make
give-
yourself sound important, and they
give
go, "You're
yourself a
hired."
job.
Right. I should have. In retrospect, if I were to time travel and counsel 2 years ago me, I would say name yourself the SVP of Cool, because they probably would have let me
yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Put him like, "Here's $200,000." You're like, "I'll take it. Why not? Why
And I'll
not?"
name myself.
SVP
Oh no,
of
the
Cool.
salary would have
Duke
still
of
been
Cool.
peanuts and hugs, but
Then I would have been like,
I
"Yeah,
would've
fuck it.
said
Doesn't
it.
matter."
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the show, Cruz.
Yeah.
Glad you're finally here. We're drinking some red wine tonight. This is a wine that is called Incognito.
It's not superhero
Hector literally
wine.
got it because it had a mask.
I don't know if we could get a close up on this. I thought
No,
it was,
we
I
can't.
thought this
Name's
was,
working.
I thought
damn
this
it.
was
Yeah.
superhero. Poor Naeem. I'm sorry, Naeem. I
Jesus,
thought that
Hector,
somebody
you're
else
so
was back
no,
there.
he can't.
Oh my
No.
gosh, Naeem, you're the best. I thought that this was going to be a like a superhero mask.
No.
But my buddies here pointed out, like, no, man, that's like an S&M thing.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
a sex match.
That's
So-
like wine
Great.
that Hector buys when he hangs out with his girlfriend on Friday night.
Great.
it's very much a 50 Shades of Wine.
Oh yeah.
Or,
Shades
or
of-
honestly,
Mr. Gray
I
will
take
see
that
you now.
back. More like when you and Keller hang out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
the
When you
kind
do your
of
50, 500 episodes podcast.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah,
what
that's
that
right.
is. That's
Mm.
what
What
that
is that?
Oh, well, this is a podcast.
plug time. It's plug
let's,
time.
Let's plug it right now. Augustine's going to be on the show soon. Adam, I have a proposition for you.
I'm all ears.
There's
Hector.
a movie. This is the podcast. It's a podcast that me and my buddy Keller do, and we're watching a movie a week. The twist of it is it's going to take us 10 years. It's going to
Exactly.
take us 10 years to get through this list of 500 movies.
So there's a list you're going on.
There's a list we're going through. The 500
find it
greatest
on the
movies of all
internet?
time.
Oh,
I found
did
it in
you?
a magazine from 10
Empire
years ago.
magazine.
An
So-
old magazine.
An old magazine.
so
yeah.
the
It's
last
so
10 years of
old.
movies do not count.
They're not
this
even in
list.
it.
No.
From 2009 to now,
To be
they're
fair,
not even
you've
in
probably
it.
seen those.
Yeah, I've seen most of those. It's the ones from 2008 and before that I'm
Yeah.
like, I've never heard of these. But
Yeah.
here's my proposition. We're doing a movie a week. We're trying to have a bunch of great guests on. We're going to start having guests on real soon at the end of January and then into February and then beyond. Augustine, you're coming on to talk about Amores Perros in a couple of
Oh, I
weeks.
love that movie.
I think I've seen it maybe. But it's going to be
you
awesome.
haven't even seen it?
It's if
Oh,
I have,
I
it's
can't
been
wait for you to
years.
watch it.
It's been years.
Yeah.
Originally, we had asked when we tried to do this before, asked Adam to come on to talk about Superman Returns because it's a movie that you could talk about Superman in film
I'm
forever.
sorry.
Yeah, it's not the best Superman movie
Why is it on that list?
because I think residual love of Superman. It's
Like
one
Empire
of two.
was like, it's
Yeah, it's
Superman.
500
500
movies.
films,
It's
so they
it's
kinda had to
one
throw
of
stuff
two
in there.
Superman
When you-
films
once
that
you
are
get
on
to
there.
499,
Trust me, I
it's
can
like,
get 500 films that do not
Yeah,
include Superman.
I know, and that's part of this
So we need a
podcast
cruise
is that
list.
we're like we started at the bottom, and we're making
now
our
we're
way
here.
up. Number 500 is Ocean's 11, the remake. We're like, that's cool.
Superman Returns beat Ocean's
Yep.
11.
Number
That's part of the-
499
Is this person no longer works at Empire? That's
it
what
was
we
a
know.
list compiled through survey.
Yeah,
So
a bunch of
10,000
surveys.
people,
Yeah.
that's what they. Yeah.
What did you do?
I know. I know. But here's my proposition to you, Adam. There is a movie that we will be discussing later in the year, around October, that I think would be
I
perfect
got
to
a
have
lot of
you
time
on.
to prep.
Yeah, you would have a lot of. But the problem is we want to try to have just one person on once for this first year, because again, we're doing this for 10 years. So it's like, I want you to be on the show, but this movie would be perfect, but then you wouldn't be able to be on it until October, but the movie is Halloween. I feel like that's the movie you got to come on and talk about.
I feel that's how you make up
pretty
with
good.
Superman.
If you,
for
because Adam loves Carpenter's like the first
Mm-hmm.
Halloween, like he loves it. So it's like
And you know what's going to be perfect? Halloween will be coming out right around that time.
Yes, it'll be
exactly.
post
So we could talk
new
about
Halloween.
all of it, not just the
Yeah.
one movie, but also
All right.
the
the
new
old
one.
ones
You
and
want
the
to do that?
resurgence.
Okay.
All right,
Dude,
fucker,
that's,
you got me.
That's
All right.
perfectly.
It is
you
perfect.
guys need to hug and make up now because
It's
Adam
yeah.
was pissed.
All right,
anyway.
if
I
there's,
wasn't that upset.
there's one movie that I get a lot of shit about for not. Can I say shit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
There's one movie that I get a lot of fucking shit about for not having seen this late in my life.
Which is Halloween?
In the 17 years I've been alive.
Yeah.
It's not Halloween.
Okay.
So if you do this movie, I would like to request to be forced to watch it.
What is it?
Even though I want to watch it, it's like
You need an
on
excuse.
You
this-
need an excuse
yeah,
to watch it. Yeah.
It's The Godfather.
That's what I was thinking. That is a movie.
All right, I'll tell you what.
The Godfather is a movie that
Yeah.
so many people
Never
that
saw.
I've met are like, never seen it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll admit to it.
Okay.
Because I'm the opposite. Everyone I know is like, you
Yeah.
killed my mother.
I'll tell you
Yeah,
what.
yeah.
I'll promise you this. If we're all of us alive in 10 years,
Is that the last movie?
It's
oh,
in
it's
the top
probably in
10.
the top
it's
10.
number one.
Oh, it's number one.
It's number one
It's
of the
top of the
500
list.
greatest movies
If
of all
you get-
time.
if
So
you-
we'll
I
literally
am
be
your
discussing
last
it
guest.
10 years
Did you
from now.
pre-record it now just in case?
Yeah, I know,
So
right?
you guys
Look.
become really good friends.
I will bring my kids, who at that point will be old enough to watch The Godfather
yeah,
with
exactly.
us. It'll
And
be
they
great.
can discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be 40. It'll be great. It would be great.
Don't.
I know.
I'll be 27.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So you'll be good.
Yeah.
Just
the
old
prime
enough
of life.
to really get the nuance in The
Yeah.
Godfather. It's a good movie.
So can you?
Any housekeeping or?
We'll get
Okay.
to it, but what exactly does your job entail at
Oh, yeah, that's
Skybound?
right.
Yeah.
Can you
Oh,
talk about
boy.
that?
Yeah.
he almost spit his wine out after he said that.
He's like, hang out.
My job at Skybound is to make all of the videos. So
That go on YouTube, that go on
anything that goes
Okay.
on YouTube, on Twitch,
Yeah.
if it's like kind of like a format we can put on Instagram, anything on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, for Walking Dead, for WalkingDead.com, Skybound.com, anything like, and we have a community called Skybound Insiders, which is now
I'm a part of
2.8 million people small. And that's kind of like our fan club, and we have like a
Nice.
Facebook group and a newsletter and all that stuff.
That's
so
awesome.
all that stuff, and we do like long form videos for them. We also work on a VR show, so we've made 3
Nice.
VR series.
That's cool.
One of which is premiering at Sundance tomorrow.
Nice.
Oh, awesome.
Which we're really excited
Why the
about.
hell are you here then?
I know.
I am leaving for Sundance
In the morning?
Saturday morning. Yeah.
Oh,
oh
cool.
wow.
And then we also work on podcasting.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of
That's
like
cool.
narrative, old school radio
Yeah.
plays that I'm really excited.
Cool.
about.
That's really cool. Tell the guy who made these sweet ass pins. Good job.
Yeah.
'Cause these
That
are
would be
really
Sean
sweet.
Kirkham, and yesterday's pins, and those are awesome.
Yeah. Wait, there's
They're great.
more.
Oh, there's Adam Eve. There's
Oh, I have the whole set.
Yeah,
there's a whole-
Conquest.
yeah,
Yeah,
I usually wear the one that says Invincible on it, but that one fell off. I still have it, but I put.
I
this
can
one
tell
on.
you that for fans of Invincible, like these are amazing. Action figures took forever.
Yeah.
All I can say is there will be more.
Bum bum.
Oh my God.
All right, speaking of Invincible, let's get this out of the way.
Uh-oh.
Hardball question, Cruz. Hardball question.
You didn't know you were on the hardball
R.I.P.
show.
career.
This is the
we
Hardball
go.
show. Is this show called Hardball?
Hardball.
Can you give us an update on the Invincible, long-awaited Invincible movie that Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg are writing, directing, that is going to be coming out at some point in the future? Can you give us any kind of an update?
Anything. Throw us a bone.
I'm not really the right person, to ask, but I can point you to the right person
Damn it.
after this. No, so Seth and Evan, I know for a fact that they are actively writing.
Cool.
Aren't
Aren't they doing a million other things too? Aren't they like?
They are doing a million other
Okay.
things. So, but they're actively writing the movie right now.
Okay.
And I can tell you that the thing that Skybound stands for, and that we try to make sure happens in everything, which is that the creators are always intimately involved, continues to be true. Robert is a very big part of the process.
Cool.
And that is all I can say.
Is Ryan Otley involved at all?
So, is Ryan in the movie?
No, I mean, like, is he doing any concept art? Like, is he?
Oh, I don't think. Maybe I don't know that we're there yet. So,
Okay,
like,
okay.
I'm as far as I know, and I may be utterly wrong about this, but as far as I know, they're still writing the script.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
So
There's no talks of Ryan
There's
yet,
no there's no concept art. There's no casting. There's no
Sure.
there's a lot, and and there is. I think the only other thing I am allowed to say is the movie isn't the only thing.
Bum bum bum.
Oh, wow.
I like that.
There's
I like
there's
that.
a lot of big plans for Invincible.
Good.
The comic book is ending, and I think a lot
This
of people
month.
are in various forms of denial about
Yep.
that.
I'm still in denial
about it coming back
Yeah.
or things. But the comic book is ending for sure. But I think Invincible will live on in as many forms as we can keep it.
Wow.
That's.
love it.
I think that's
That's-
the beautiful thing about where we are now, like today in media, is you can take these comic book properties or anything really, and you can spin it into so many different formats.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can do things on film, on television. You can.
That you couldn't do 10 years ago.
No, like it was a
Online,
It just
yeah, sure.
wasn't. It wasn't something that people thought about. And now
Yeah.
with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these social networks, and even like video game consoles and all that stuff. There's so many things you can do.
Yep.
Comics, like you can take anything and almost repurpose it for any format, as long as you do it the right way.
Yeah.
We also spent. I mean, like, look, Skybound is only 7 years old, more or less.
Yeah.
And we have a lot going on, but for the most part, people know The Walking Dead, and we love it. It's great. We're big fans. But in the first 5 years of the company, were really built on building the infrastructure to support Walking Dead, and that meant comic book, TV show, toys, conventions, video games, Telltale, all that stuff. But now that infrastructure is there, and for the first time in the last year or so, we've been able to put it towards things like Invincible,
That's
or towards
awesome.
things like new creators have brought us that we didn't even know
Yeah.
were a thing until they wrote them.
That's awesome.
And for them to be able to retain ownership of their creations, and for us to be able to leverage all those things that we made for
Yeah,
Walking Dead
yeah.
to help them make big things, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully in the next year or two, people will stop thinking of us as the company that does The Walking, Dead,
sure.
and more of the company that does literally everything awesome ever.
That's
made.
awesome, dude. That's good to hear. You guys are a good company.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
No, for real. There's a lot of companies who will screw out the artists.
Yep.
And
And I
it's
think
good
that-
to hear that people out there are focusing on artists.
I think
and giving
Robert,
people credit.
that whole conversation reminds me of Image Comics and how it started, and Robert Kirkman, being a partner at Image, and him sort of bringing a lot of his books there in the beginning, and still working with them, and it reminded me of the episode of Robert Kirkman's documentary series, which I caught up with. I watched all of them. Robert Kirkman's Secret History of Comics, and I really dug it.
One
I
of
thought
those
it was
made me
awesome.
cry.
Which one?
The 9/11 one. But I'm
It
from New
was
York.
there's
Oh.
a whole documentary about how 9/11 changed comics that you could apply to not just comics but movies, and they talk
Yeah.
about The Dark Knight and Batman Begins,
Yeah.
and they talk about what superhero comic books meant after that. That was a beautiful episode because it put me right back to what we all experienced when that happened. And
When you
know-
forget that a silly amount of Marvel, it literally they all live in New York.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
There's a huge.
the
all
fictional
of, like, the
characters
main
and the real
characters.
creators
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And the real,
Yeah.
the publishers and everything that were there.
Yeah.
That was a really powerful episode. The episode that made me cry was the Milestone.
Color of Comics.
Color of Comics. The Milestone as the imprint that was sort of working with DC Comics back in the day, the rise and fall of Milestone, which led to Static Shock, which led to a lot of great characters and creators getting to work on stuff. Dwayne McDuffie, rest in peace, is one of my favorite writers, and his work in animation and comics was a huge influence on me. That literally, seeing the sort of the repercussions of that whole endeavor was beautiful and made me tear up. It
Well,
was
and the
great.
thing we could never have foreseen, we've been working on that show for about a year.
Sure.
And we made that show at Skybound. The directors were in our office. Half of those interviews,
Yeah.
Patty Jenkins and
Yeah.
Gal Gadot, half of those interviews, Michelle Rodriguez, that. Anytime
They're
you see
there.
the break background, that's just our office.
I've
that's
been there,
awesome.
yeah.
And
it's crazy.
That's cool.
we could never have foreseen that the Milestone comics would have relaunched
Yeah.
like this last year,
Yep.
which
Yeah.
is great for, Black comic creators and writers and artists, and to continue to have a voice in that space and with such a big company that like represents superheroes in such a strong way.
Yeah.
But to be able to have talked about that history and then suddenly be like, and we're back,
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
That was like
That's
when
awesome.
Fever Pitch did a whole movie, a rom-com about the Boston Red Sox, and as they were filming that movie, the Boston Red Sox won the World Series. So they had to. They're like,
Right.
"What?
We gotta put this in."
It broke the curse in our movie? Like, yeah, we got to put this in." Yeah.
Yep.
So that was great. So if you guys can find that documentary series, I highly recommend it because I'm watching it and it's a bunch of stuff that I've seen that I kind of know and read about and knew about. But I was watching it with my girlfriend, and Abby would turn to me and she'd be like, "You've talked about this before," and I'd be like, "Yeah." And it's a thing where just it provided context.
Somebody
Yeah.
smarter than you has said it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Validation,
Somebody, the whole show just provides that context that you can draw to, not just comic books and that sort of world, but again, like broader pop culture, because that's what comics are now.
Right.
And you can see those repercussions. And again, just the history of Image Comics, which was a great episode, and how that feeds into what Robert Kirkman went through to brings us to today. So it's everything
Yeah.
sort of connects. You
Or
know?
like I knew about the history of Wonder Woman and
Yes.
like that whole polyamorous situation they had
Yes.
going on and the S&M stuff, but like thinking about what Wonder Woman meant then and what she means now, and then what I didn't know and I found out when we were making that was that weird shift after he died,
Yeah.
after the creator died, and they turned her into like
the secretary.
the secretary with no superpowers.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're like, ooh.
Another big one, the whole episode about the creators of Superman. Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, you guys. We all know how they got screwed over.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this with Abby, and she was turning to me, she's like, "No way." And I'm like, "Yep."
You're all,
This
now you
happened.
No
know.
way.
And
now
this
you
would,
know.
This would make such an incredible movie, such a great sad movie. And you guys are talking to Neil Adams, and he's still here, and he's still, he's like, "Yeah, I like helped him back in the day." Like, it was so great. But but again, that's another great episode to see just the impact of Superman.
Yeah.
Because that's what that episode went into. Like, look at how impactful, look at how this character changed the world and makes people so happy.
Yeah.
Right, that thing
You
that
know?
Kevin Smith goes on this rant about
Yeah.
how like there's a few symbols that literally no matter
Yep.
what language you speak you're gonna recognize. You show the cross to someone, they're gonna recognize. You show the Jewish star to people, they'll recognize it. You see one of them is the Superman S.
Yeah.
Like
I think it's in the
that's
top 3 most
crazy.
recognizable
Yeah.
pieces of
I
iconography.
bet you guys
Yeah.
have hours of Kevin Smith footage just of him just ranting, just talking.
He was
you
there
guys
for
would-
like 3 days,
yeah,
just
throw him a
nonstop
topic.
talking.
Everyone
Yeah.
went home and Kevin's still there.
Yeah.
Adam,
great.
we should.
I'm sure he's still there. Just
He's probably still talking.
Still recording.
Yeah.
We should watch that episode and live stream it so everybody can watch us cry.
It's,
Yeah,
you
that'd be
guys,
good.
it's
Yeah.
really great.
Yeah.
Has there been any word? Are you guys planning to do a season 2? Any word on that yet?
we hope so.
Okay.
I mean the viewership was really, really good.
Cool.
So we're really hoping that
You guys got people to watch a show about comic books. That's
on Monday nights.
that's a big
Yeah.
deal. So hopefully you get to
That's
do it.
awesome.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Cool.
A little bit of housekeeping. I want to let you guys know that our show is no longer live streaming on Thursday nights. This is a YouTube only show going forward. Whether or not we would be able to do this show live on YouTube in the future, that's always a possibility. If you guys would maybe like that, let us know in the comments and we can maybe consider that. It's really tough running all the shows that are run here on Twitch.
Yeah.
So doing this show live, I think it's a little bit more of a hurdle for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We've done
but
this
we'll definitely
before.
consider it.
Well, it costs money. It costs a lot of
Yes,
money.
Yeah.
we've done this before. We've talked about this before. We've done live events, like
Yeah.
on like one weekend out of the month. We'll on a Saturday morning we'll do a live thing and be able to chat with stuff with people. So that could be a possibility too. I mean,
Yeah.
we've done that stuff before.
Exactly.
It's cool.
And then also make sure you guys listen to the podcast. It's on iTunes, on SoundCloud, and it's on Google Play.
Yep.
Make sure you guys are going in, liking them, commenting on them, and reviewing them because the more you guys do that, the more you guys interact with that sort of content, it bumps it up on iTunes,
Yeah,
and more people will
definitely.
discover us.
Adam, what can you tell us about talks of maybe doing a road to Infinity War?
I was not going to bring that up. I was not gonna bring
Are
that
you
up.
not the correct person to talk to about this?
You may want to call my assistant.
Yeah.
Naeem?
We'll talk to Zach about it.
No, yeah, we've had
There's
had
talks.
We've had conversations
There's
with
talks.
ourselves. I had a conversation with Zach about it. We have ideas for how we would do it. I think we're not really game to do something that is starting from Iron Man all the way to Black Panther.
I mean, you
in
mean the
one
Hulk.
go.
What's that?
Do you mean the
You want to start with the Hulk.
You want to start with Iron Man?
technically?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's not something that we want to do all the way through because that is a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is literally like a 72-hour commitment. I think we'd be dead at the end of that thing. So we're talking about ways how we can kind of do it. We don't necessarily want to do it week to week starting now because
Yeah.
we feel like there's not too much relevance. Like we know Black Panther's coming out. We kind of want to keep the focus on Black Panther.
Yeah.
And then after Black Panther comes out, then I think we can kind of start focusing on Avengers Infinity War. But we have ideas, and we think if we could pull it off, it could be really, really fun.
Yeah.
And be a nice way for you guys to interact with us live when we watch it, and then we would post those episodes on the YouTube channel after the fact, which would then give you guys further ways of being interactive with the content. So
Can I
Maybe.
Can I challenge
Just
you?
end that with maybe.
Cruz,
Can
you
I
want to
challenge you?
You want to challenge us? Go ahead.
How?
And you can cut this out and utterly reject it. But so before I was in Skybound, me and my buddies ran a YouTube channel called Cinefix, which is still going. And when Avengers 2 came out,
Yeah.
Marvel did this thing where they played everything from the Hulk all the way through Avengers 2 in a movie theater, and you could buy a ticket and do the marathon. So all of us went and started with the Hulk, and we would walk out in between every movie, re-review it, walk back in, and we did not sleep until Avengers played.
we did that last year.
We kind of
Until-
did that,
we
but
did
we
it-
broke it up in
Ultron?
2 days.
We did it. We did it with Iron Man. We went all the way to Civil War.
Yeah.
Do it again.
But it was broken up in 2 days, though. It wasn't like you
Oh,
guys.
I
No,
couldn't do it
all
straight,
the way
man.
through.
Oh, my God.
That
That's-
means last year you chickened out. You didn't go all the way. This year you got to go
After
all
those
the
12
way.
hours, I was like,
I
this is not chickening out.
I told these guys, and I told Zach, I'm like, if we're gonna do this, it has to be epic.
Yeah.
I want Robert Downey Jr. to walk
Yeah,
into
'cause
this
it's-
fucking house.
It's
Yeah.
Infinity War. Yeah.
Yeah, I want it to be something epic, and whether or not like we can make it something like that, we'll see.
Look,
Yeah.
there's
We'll see,
425 actors in this movie.
right?
If you ask all of them, one of them might
At
show
least
up.
one.
It's just,
might
it's just
show
a
up.
numbers game at that
Well,
point.
Malik, like I said, Malika's already been in Iron Man 3.
Exactly.
That's
So we
true.
got one
we
person
have
locked
one
in.
person there. So
If we could get like a Jeremy Renner, or something.
yeah, totally.
I
Or
don't
just
even.
a third
Is
extra in the
Jeremy
back.
Renner in this movie?
Yeah.
so.
He is
Are
definitely.
we sure?
He's definitely in Infinity
Definitely
War.
in it.
Yeah, there's
he
a whole
just
group of
wrapped
actors. We're not sure if they're in it yet, including Marissa Tomei's Aunt May.
Yep.
Jacob Batalon's Ned Leeds. Some of those supporting characters. I don't know if it's been confirmed if Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts is going to be in
She
it. Some of
is.
those
That
characters.
seems
She's in
like
it.
that would be a big
Right?
miss if,
Yeah.
if Pepper Potts.
I know.
I think most of those will be in there, and I think they'll be in 4 as well. And I think some of the roles will be smaller, but
Yeah,
right,
we'll
like
see
I'm
about it.
assuming it's like
Yeah.
a shot of Hawkeye being like, hide family in the basement,
and
then we
cut
never
back
see him
to
again.
Captain
Yeah,
America.
and then
yeah.
even his cool mohawk will definitely be in the movie.
Well, there's rumors that he shows up in Wakanda in that shot
Interesting.
where they're all running. The rumors are that like that's only a fraction of the characters that
Yeah.
are there.
Oh,
The ones
okay.
that were running
But
at
didn't
us.
he
So.
retire? He retired.
I mean,
Let
yeah,
him
but
live
then
it.
you know,
Nobody. He came
Nobody
back in
re-
Civil
you-
War.
he was
Dude,
putting
you know comics.
an arrow back
know
on his.
comics.
I'm just saying.
Nobody
the
retires.
way that they retired him,
Yeah.
like I'm just hoping Thanos kills his family. Not because I feel bad, for, but like then he'll be back. You know, then he'll be back.
Then he's got a reason to be.
You know what?
Mr.
Let's
Return.
retire him and let's bring up the Kate Bishop Hawkeye. How about that? All of these characters have like people waiting in the wings, like that are
Yep.
either the black guys or the women that are just
Yeah.
come on, let me replace you, man. Let me try.
Let me do
you
it.
just
Let
go
me
ahead
do
and
it.
quit, and
Let
I'll
me
jump.
get a
I'll
shot.
jump in. I'll jump in. Yeah.
Very
Jack
possible,
me in,
Captain
jack me
America.
in.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, let's actually get to the news now, Adam,
Yeah.
because we.
Let's get to the news.
That was
So
fun.
the first thing we're going to talk about, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man: Homecoming. Writers John Francis Daly and
Freaks
Jonathan
and Geeks.
Goldstein are. It's not officially I don't think the ink has dried yet, but they are
No.
definitely in negotiations to be
thought it was-
directing Flashpoint.
I thought it was confirmed. It hasn't been like a press release from Warner
Hasn't been a
Brothers
press release
Okay.
yet.
Nothing official's been said.
Everybody that's been reporting this has been saying that they're in negotiations. John Francis Daly, he retweeted the tweet and gave it a thumbs up. But I think once we actually get an official press release that says that these two are directing this movie, let's not assume that everything is a done deal, because I think we've
Yeah.
done that. I think too many people have done that in the past, and they have assumed that it's a lock, and a lot of times it ends up not being true. And we know the history with the Flash movie. It's gone
Yeah.
through several directors,
Yeah.
several writers.
Robert Zemeckis.
Robert Zemeckis was somebody that people kept saying he's in negotiations. They're talking to him. All these things kept being thrown around, and there was no confirmation, no denial. But now, we get this kind of this curveball that these two are going to be doing it. They're very much sort of embedded in the Warner Brothers family. They've done Vacation. They're doing a new movie called Game Night. They've written Horrible Bosses.
Didn't they
1 and
come
2.
out? Didn't Game Night come out? Wasn't that
Game
the
Night
one
came
with
out,
Will
yeah.
Ferrell and Amy Poehler?
And Amy Poehler?
No,
Where they had the
no.
casino?
Game Night is the
Oh.
one with Jason Bateman and who's the other? Kyle Chandler is in it.
That's the
Oh.
one
I
where
don't
they
know that
like
one.
they're playing. That's the one where they're basically playing Settlers of Catan.
Pretty much.
But it all goes really wrong.
Real bad. Real
What?
bad, yeah.
Really?
That comes out in.
Is
I
it a
believe,
comedy?
Yes, I believe it comes
Okay.
out in the next week or two. So
Okay.
Wait,
we're
what was
right
the
by
what
it.
was the one with Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler?
I know
That
which one
was
you're talking
like
about.
House-
It's like poker
The
night.
House.
Yeah, it was like the house. Yeah. House.
yeah.
House always wins.
So a lot of people are speculating that because they hired these two guys to direct, because of their history, and obviously because they wrote Spider-Man: Homecoming, which is somewhat of a more lighter tone movie, more comedic, that maybe that's where they're going to take the Flashpoint story. Now, I think there's
Is that a
sort
bad
of there's
thing?
sort of two. Well, I think there's two responses to it,
Yeah.
right? I think depending on what Warner Brothers wants to do with the Flash, if they want to sort of embrace the lightness and the humor and that sort of tone that they established in Justice League,
Yep.
then it's not necessarily a bad thing to kind of lean into that for Flashpoint.
A lot of
But-
people have already made the comparison that he is very much Warner Brothers and DC's version of a young hero like Spider-Man.
Sure.
Like that's who that character is. That's who Ezra Miller is playing,
Yeah.
and that's the vibe that he inhabits when he's in that world. Versus over here on this side, with all of the white dudes named Chris playing Marvel heroes, you got a kid named Tom Holland who's the young hero
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people have already made that comparison even before any of this news that that's who Flash was in Justice League. That was the
Yeah.
role that he was serving.
Yeah, pretty
so
much.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But what's option two?
No, well, I think there's kind of two ways to go about it. The first option being that they can kind of embrace that lighter tone, but I think the second option is I would say never discredit comedy directors or writers,
Thank you.
and assume that they can't do drama, because look at Adam McKay. He did The Big Short. That's very much a drama piece. You know, you look at Danny McBride and even David Gordon Green, who is the director. He's jumped around a lot. He's doing Halloween, which is a horror movie. He's done
But didn't
comedies
he
like
do
Pineapple Express.
Pineapple Express, yeah.
But he's also done movies like what's the movie he did with Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Oh, the
50-50.
cancer one.
50-50.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one.
50.
Oh no,
50-50,
sorry,
yeah.
that wasn't David Gordon Green. That was Jonathan.
No, that was David Gordon. I thought that was David.
No, it's a different
It's
director.
not?
It was the other movie that he did was the one that came out with Jake Gyllenhaal that just came out.
Stronger.
Stronger. He did
Wow,
Stronger.
that's
Oh,
a David
that's
Gordon
David
Green
Gordon
joint.
Green, yeah.
Yep.
Good for David Gordon
So I think people
Green. And the Russo brothers.
the Russo brothers.
You could like
Yeah.
that's Winter Soldier, baby. That's
Yeah.
Cruz's
Even
favorite
Seth Rogen
Marvel
and
Cinematic
Evan
Universe
Goldberg.
Jordan
movie.
Peele.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah.
Get out,
Yeah.
Jordan
Seth
Peele.
Rogen,
Come on.
Evan Goldberg that are doing Invincible, Preacher.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And
Right.
they've done plenty of comedy. So
Yeah.
I saw a lot of comments that people were making about that, like, "Oh, cool. So now we're just gonna get the Marvel writers to make all the DC stuff." It's like, no, these guys have very much been players at Warner Brothers for a
Guys.
long time.
Guys,
There's no exclusivity.
both companies will use the same people.
Yeah.
Vice versa. Sorry,
Just like
that's how that
their-
works.
all their characters are ripoffs
Ugh.
of each other.
It's,
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of these superhero character archetypal characters, they're interchangeable. They're awesome. They're
Yeah.
But that's the way it works. Like there is a rivalry on the internet. It doesn't exist in the real world.
No,
Okay.
no,
Warner
it
Brothers
really
and
doesn't.
Disney
Companies need to
use
really
the same
doesn't.
talent. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So leave that at the door. That's
They
not how
don't
that
sign
works.
exclusive contracts
Oh,
to
great.
like.
We're gonna get all the Marvel stuff, guys.
Shut up.
Zip it.
Look,
zip
what
it,
I
bring
will
it down.
say is what's interesting to me about it
Yeah.
is that there's a very clear reason, right, why Flashpoint is next.
You think?
Yeah, it's very,
You
very
think it's
obvious.
their
I-
reboot
yeah,
thing?
I
They've
know.
restructured
I know.
upper management.
We just
They've-
don't know when the movie's coming. That's the only thing.
That's fine, but they've restructured upper management.
true.
They've pretty much blatantly stated that they're going to change the direction of the DCEU and
Multiple times, yeah.
And Flashpoint gives them the opportunity to do that. It's literally the Days of Future Past of the DC universe. They're going to utilize Flashpoint to create a new universe, a new reality that they're not going to be able to undo, and therefore create a new universe to start over again.
In which Gal Gadot is still.
In
Wonder
which
Woman.
Gal Gadot still manages to be Wonder Woman.
She's still the lead, and she ends up being the leader.
And
Yep,
they've done this.
yep.
I mean, look, they've played with that in the TV world.
Sure.
Like Supergirl ended up on a different
Yeah.
Earth because she was on CBS.
Correct.
And then ended up in Warner Brothers. But now
The
they
Flash show reboot affected some of the casting in Arrow.
Right.
All of a sudden, one of the characters had like a daughter instead of a son, or
Right.
vice versa.
so
Whatever
they've
it was.
played with these ideas before. They've played with these ideas in the comic, and so they can keep the same casting. They can keep
Yeah.
Jason Momoa as Aquaman. They can keep her as Wonder Woman. They can reboot Batman.
Yeah.
And like they can do a lot of things, and Days of Future Past it, and it's very clear that that's what they're doing because of what's happening behind the
Yep,
scenes.
I agree.
And the question then becomes: is the choice of these writer directors also a choice to shift the voice of the universe?
That's a good question, Cruz.
And
I mean,
it doesn't
that's a good
necessarily
observation.
need to be comedic.
It could
No.
be.
It
Yeah.
can still be dramatic.
Right.
It's just not with that Zack Snyder visual feel.
Right. Well, you look
Yeah.
at the Batman movie itself. Like Matt Reeves is doing that. That's a very different style director than John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein.
Yeah, right.
Right,
But
right.
it's somebody who deeply cares about character, deeply cares about story, really wants to get to the root of who Batman is and what he is, what he represents. And the fact that maybe that movie is going to be a prequel, again, plays even more so into the idea of Flashpoint to reboot the series, using Flashpoint as a way of maybe bringing that Matt Reeves Batman into the greater DC
Right.
universe.
And
guys-
just because there's comedy writers, just to reiterate what Adam said, does not necessarily mean it's going to be a straight up gut busting Dumb and Dumber style comedy. You know,
I mean,
like
Spider-Man: Homecoming wasn't that.
Right.
Right.
And Spider-Man: Homecoming
The
had some of the
scene-
best.
With Adrian Toomes and Peter in the car, that was a great scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that was written
And they
by.
wrote that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they wrote that. So that's the thing. Like, in order to do comedy, Hector, you do comedy. You know how
Sometimes.
difficult it is to do
It
comedy.
is. It can
In
be.
order
Wait,
to
you
do
do
comedy,
comedy?
I'm doing it right now. I'm dying. I'm dying up here.
dying
Yes.
right now.
Yeah.
so in order to do comedy, you need to be very in tune on how people feel. Like you
Right.
need to be able to feel a room. You need to be able to understand what certain people are going to find funny in order to make people laugh. You have to be very
Great point.
sensitive,
Great point.
and very empathic to how people are feeling. And that just doesn't touch on comedy. Like when you are empathic towards what people are feeling, you can pick up on everything to know when to tell a funny joke, a sad joke, or just tell something that's not even funny to like kind of even things out. So I think that's the brilliance of comedy writer and comedy director.
To go off of your point, Augustine, like it's not surprising when a great dramatic performance comes out of a comedic actor.
Exactly.
It's Adam Sandler,
Happen so
Robin
much.
Williams,
Yeah.
Jim Carrey. All of these actors.
Look, I'm not the biggest Will Ferrell fan, but
He can do.
He can
He's
do it.
capable
He
of
can-
doing
he
that
can
stuff.
do it,
We
yeah.
saw it in what was it? Not Stranger Things. What was it?
Stranger Than Fiction.
Stranger Than
Yeah,
Fiction.
Stranger Than Fiction.
But there's so many examples, like so many times, audiences might be surprised, Hollywood might be surprised when you get a performance like that from a comedic actor. But again, people that kind of know comedy, they'll know, like sometimes some of these people have to go to some pretty dark places,
Yeah.
and
have you guys seen Dave Chappelle's latest special?
I saw
No.
like
He
a
goes
good chunk of it.
Dark.
Yeah.
He goes dark, but he goes dark and still makes you laugh. It's
Yeah.
insane how he can like
Right.
read a room
got his
and
finger on
know
the
how to
pulse.
write this joke.
You're
It's
absolutely
just so watch Dave Chappelle's latest 2 comedy specials. They're brilliant and they're
Netflix.
insane. Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. though.
That's it. Sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm just going to jump in here one real quick because I think emotional reality is the reason I'm worried about them writing and directing this movie is not because they're comedy directors and not because it will mimic the voice of Marvel, but because of the shortcomings of Spider-Man: Homecoming. Because to me,
Interesting. Oh, that's right.
the mistakes that they made on Spider-Man: Homecoming didn't ruin the movie. It's still a good movie.
Right.
But to me, I'm hoping that they've learned from them to make a better Flashpoint. Because
just to kind of expand on that a little bit, we've had this conversation before. You feel like at the end of Spider-Man: Homecoming, the main character, Peter Parker, doesn't necessarily learn anything, doesn't change.
it's not
that's
just at the
doesn't
end.
finish
to
kind
me,
of okay.
To me, the characters in Spider-Man: Homecoming, outside of Tom Holland, don't ring true to me.
Okay.
The girlfriend, I don't remember her name anymore, but the not married, not married,
Liz
Jane,
Allen.
the not Zendaya,
Liz, yeah.
and the best friend. There are 2 giant pivotal moments where Peter Parker literally lets them down in the worst way possible for their relationship. Here's this chubby kid who doesn't have any friends, who like feels like an outcast. His best friend is being weird. He knows he's Spider-Man. He forces this kid to go to a party full of people he doesn't know,
And
he doesn't
yeah.
like talking to,
And he
to
did- yeah.
and he ditches him, and the guy's reaction is like, okay, cool. Flash forward, he loves this girl. He's utterly obsessed with this girl. He keeps making his feelings known. She reciprocates them. He stands her up once. He stands her up again. He puts her father in jail. And her response emotionally keeps being like, oh, it's okay. And you're like, there are no emotional consequences to his actions.
I see
and
that.
underneath all of it is a theme of the fact that the movie starts with a Peter Parker who's a kid, and because he's a kid, is caught up in the grandeur of being a superhero and of a civil war and of having shared the stage with some of these big players.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Robert Downey Jr. is going like, you're an irresponsible kid. just having these, he's trying to teach him with great power comes great responsibility. And what Peter Parker learns by the end of the movie is, well, it works out for me anyway. He doesn't learn with great power with responsibility. He doesn't fall on his face. And when he falls on his face, there's no consequences. And at the end of the movie, he's still irresponsible. He still doesn't follow the rules, and he gets rewarded for it. And the lesson basically is, I should be more responsible, but everything works out for me because I'm Peter Parker. And like, you're just like, no, fuck that.
Yeah.
So to me,
I see that.
if they're going to do Flashpoint, at the heart of which is, I am going to be a child enough to think that I can go save my mother, and it's not going to affect who I became as a person or what ramifications that has on reality. And I have to then decide, in whatever way that DCEU decides to do it, that I'm going to let my mother die.
Yeah, for the greater good.
For the greater good. If they can't reward that emotional arc,
Sure.
no matter how much they rewrite it and no matter how much they do a good job, it'll still be a B- movie, which to me, that's what Spider-Man Homecoming is.
Interesting. Good
It's
points.
like, it's
Good
fine.
points. Yeah.
It's not great.
All right.
Very good points.
I could counterpoint the shit out of that, right? I could do it right now.
We don't have that much time, Hector.
I don't think you're
We
wrong,
don't have
Cruz.
that much time.
I would hope that with the differences of those characters, you know, where Peter Parker is a 16-year-old kid or whatever, and the Ezra Miller Flash is early 20s, however old
Like a
he is.
maybe autistic early 20s?
Yeah, I guess. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's, 19? I don't know. Like,
The Flash?
he's like, yeah, like Barry
I
Allen
would say he's
Flash.
like mid.
He's like mid-20s, but
Yeah,
has like
yeah.
social anxieties
Yeah.
or maybe has
Yeah.
whatever the
Him
case
and
may
Victor
be.
are definitely the youngest guys on
For
that
sure.
team.
I would hope that the differences in those characters like will inherently give the writer, directors, whatever, like the place to go, because I feel like a lot of people, and they're not wrong, that, you know, you're pointing out the stuff in Spider-Man Homecoming, and I'm maybe forgiving it because I'm going, well, it's Harry Potter 1 in a series of 8 Harry Potter movies. It is this sort of like lower stakes, you know, you're still in high school, kind of like early years high school Spider-Man type story versus the stuff later where it's like, oh, you accidentally killed your girlfriend. Oh, you know, your aunt dies, and oh, it turns out she was replaced by a robot actress, and your best friend's dad is the one that did it, and you got to go deal with that. Oh, and you have a clone, and you might be the clone. Nope, you're not the clone. Like all of this, like sort of like crazy heavier stakes shit that happens in Peter's later years, but again, it's because I enjoyed the movie and I'm defending. You know, I'm looking at those flaws and I'm going, this is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which is like what happens. Oh, it talks to the back of a head, and then we'll see you next movie, Harry. And then, you know, he gets to the heavy stuff later. But that's just because I'm grafting that sort of like Harry Potter long game over this kid actor who I think is great and where they could go with it.
Sure, but like Harry Potter still, when J.K. Rowling has the like emotional reality to be able to say, when Harry Potter is a dick, his friends are dicks back.
Yep, that's true.
Like when Harry Potter becomes a little bit of a shit when he turns 13, because everyone
put in
turns
his
into a shit
place.
when he turns
Yeah,
13.
he gets put in his
Hermione
place.
and Ron are like, I don't know that I want to hang out with you anymore.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself.
Like
Harry.
your little shit.
Yeah.
Bye, little shit.
I think the other interesting thing about this too is they are not writing it as of now. They are solely being brought on to direct. Joby Harold is the latest writer who wrote King Arthur and wrote the new Robin Hood movie that's coming out with Taron Egerton.
Okay.
Is the latest person to kind of do a rewrite on this script. So I'm so curious to see if these two are actually going to go in, if the deal gets signed, and if they're going to go and do a pass and maybe address those things if they're in the script, if there
Yeah,
are concerns
yeah.
about,
I hope
you know,
so.
is there a payoff at the end of this story for this, not only this character, because remember, the Flashpoint, it deals with a lot of things, and it particularly deals with a really big moment for Batman.
It's a complex story.
It is, and it's like,
Huge,
are,
complex
Are we going to include all those things? And if we are, then we definitely know what that means for the greater universe.
Yeah.
But how hard is it going to actually hit?
Yeah.
For not only Flash, but also for everybody else.
Before moving on, because I feel like this is the media story, I do want to ask you guys something. Because talking about all that stuff, talking about all the plates that are spinning with a Flashpoint story,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
that could be, do you guys feel like that's going to be confusing to audiences that aren't used to comic book shit? Because we're used to comic book shit. We know what comic books do. We know that these big companies especially will reboot every couple of years or kind of, you know, smudge the universe to kind of get things to fit into place. Regular audiences, I remember when Spider-Man Homecoming came out, and I knew people that were like, "Oh, it's not Andrew Garfield anymore." Like that's not something
don't
that
follow it like
they
we
don't
do.
follow this stuff. So
Not
if they-
everybody follows comic book movies like we do.
Exactly. If there's Ben Affleck Batman, all of a sudden there's a new actor that's Batman. You know, look, back in the day, they didn't have to explain why Val Kilmer was all of a sudden Bruce Wayne in Batman Forever. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So, question to you guys: do you think that this could potentially be too confusing for audiences?
I don't know if it'll necessarily be confusing. I think a lot of it's going to depend on the quality of the movies and where
Yeah.
Flashpoint
Yeah.
is slotted. I think if we are leading up to Flashpoint, and this movie doesn't come out maybe till 2020, 2021. And in that time, you know, we have 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6
Aquaman,
movies.
Shazam,
Exactly.
a Batman film,
Another Wonder Woman movie. I think if those movies slowly sort of start to build to that concept, then I don't think you'll lose as many people as you might think. I think there are certain people that you will lose no matter what. I think they're gonna, you know, go into Flashpoint and Ben Affleck goes in and Jake Gyllenhaal or whoever comes out, and they're gonna be like,
so weird.
I don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
It'd be so weird.
So I think there's gonna be a little bit.
I think you're right that the casting thing, but also it's like hitting somebody with a hardcore comics, time traveling, dimension bending type thing is going to be a little bit of a hard concept to film, first of all, to put on paper. And you don't have the brilliance of the people who made Back to the Future doing this. Like
Zemeckis
the
is
Back to
out.
the Future, everything was tied up in nice, neat little knots. And
Sure.
I don't know that the people who are making this movie generally
I mean,
have
even look
those.
at Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Like, mostly for what it did to bring those two casts together, and then to execute and to make it really,
I really liked it. Yeah.
to make it really feel like at the end of the movie, okay, I completely understand what's happened.
Right.
The
Now,
beginning
even
of that
this is
movie, I don't know
literally
what
a
the
whole
fuck
new
is going
cast.
on still.
But that's I think like
To this day.
if it wasn't for I would agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that we've done it so many times at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like at this point, we've done it with X-Men, we've done it with Star Trek, we've done it on television now a few times.
Yeah.
So like I feel like today's audience is sophisticated
savvy enough,
enough.
yeah,
But
okay.
also that the DC universe, the cinematic universe, where Marvel has gone into saying, what is the movie genre? How do we make it a good heist movie or a good horror movie or a good comedy? DC has very much been like, we're making this a comic book.
Yeah.
And like Justice League, I don't think made any sense to anybody who hasn't read a comic book.
Sure.
It was like a wacky,
It's a movie for
weird
fans.
ride. It's a
Yeah.
movie for fans.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so like, you know, I'm excited for a DCEU reboot. I think that will be really good for the universe. At the same time, do I want to see Zack Snyder's version of Amazons and Atlanteans like going at each other? Yeah. It's gonna be stupid, and I'm gonna hate it. But
All
I
right.
kind of want.
I would
But
love to
it'd
see
be
a
cool to
really
see.
a really skinny Henry Cavill Superman that was like kept by the government, you know, and they do like the Steve Rogers technology to make Henry Cavill super skinny and emaciated. Like, oh, I can't, I haven't had any sun. Like that would be
And
awesome.
they keep his mustache and they keep
Yeah.
erasing.
They keep the consistency of a terrible upper lip just like floating all over his face.
All right.
I thought the other interesting thing too was Ben Affleck was one of the people that they approached to direct this, and he
Yeah.
passed on it, which
I thought that was
He's
weird.
done, son. He is so done with.
I think
with
it's so
anything
interesting.
DC.
I feel like they're really trying to keep him in some way.
Sure.
And he has said that
Wow.
he has said in the past, and who knows, like this, he could just be saying this, but I believe it to some extent that he does want to eventually direct something, whether it's a Batman movie or whether it's some other superhero. I think there's some truth to that, but I think for him, because of the movies that he's made, it's got to be the right scale, the right budget, and I don't think he wants to be forced into making a deadline.
I think he took that job. He took the job as Batfleck to direct Batman.
Yeah.
That is why he took
That
that
and
job.
a couple of other passion
And
projects.
that was either taken away from him or there was something behind the scenes where there was some major disagreements and some major people not getting along.
I think it was
Yeah.
a combination of everything.
a
Because I mean, they even
critical
even-
reception,
Right.
everything that happened.
Well, and I think
with the
they-
last
they-
couple
Good director.
movies.
They also upped him to an executive producer role in Justice League, whatever that means. From what we've read, it's been a lot. He was doing a lot of script work with Chris Terrio. I find it so fascinating because like we've talked about Ben Affleck in the past. He is somebody who is a diehard Batman fan.
He has a bat cave in his house.
Yeah, or at least he did at some point. I don't
And
think
he's
he does
a
anymore.
great director.
He
Great director.
is.
And how did they keep Leonard Nimoy interested in Star Trek back in the 80s after his character Spock died in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan? They're like, Leonard, do you want to direct Star Trek III, The Search for Spock? And he was like, okay, I'll barely be in it, but I'll direct it. How do you keep him? Leonard, do you want to direct Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home? Yeah, all right. Okay, I'm in it. Oh, shit, now Shatner's not happy. William, do you want to direct Star Trek V, The Final Frontier? Here you go. Oh, it's real shitty. Let's get the other guy back. Nicholas Meyer, can you come back and do part 6?
Can you
All
just
right.
clean this
But
shit
it's-
up, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's the idea of like, you know, that hopefully makes me feel like they weren't going to do, hey, Ben Affleck, direct the movie where you're being replaced by another actor as Batman. But rather, hey, Ben Affleck, direct the movie where you're Batman in your last movie.
Yeah.
And in the next one, it'll just be a different actor, and it's not a big deal.
He was also rumored to be like Warner Brothers also approached him to direct Justice League. So like
Wow.
he has been.
You mean because Zack Snyder was already doing
Like
it.
before
This
they
was
went to
before.
Joss?
Before they before they went to Zack. Like
Oh.
when these movies were still
Interesting.
sort of in their
Separate things.
inception phase.
Okay.
But I think probably before he was even approached to be Batman or simultaneously. But yeah, I think it's so interesting to see that these two directors who have written more than they've directed are going to be directing this. The two movies, or the one movie that I've seen from them, Vacation, I'm not a fan of it. I don't think
That
it
was the new
the
reboot.
new one, yeah,
of-
with Ed Helms.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was well directed or well written, but I liked a lot of Spider-Man: Homecoming. I liked some of the other movies that they've done, like Meatballs and
Cloudy with a Chance of
and,
Meatballs,
Horrible Bosses, the first
Bosses.
one. Like,
Sure.
So I think there's something there. I think they just need to be paired up with the right creative team. And if Jeff Johns and the people at Warner Brothers and DC are really trying to right the ship, then they really need to take the time with these filmmakers to get them to understand the universe, understand the characters, and to not rush. And that's one of the things that they talked about with the change in leadership was, we try to do the Marvel thing and it didn't work for us. So fuck it, let's not do it. You shouldn't. Do
Do you
need-
do you, boo
You
boo.
do you, boo boo. You
do
got to
you,
really
boo.
play off your own strengths.
Do a movie, and don't even tell yourself, well, they're going to do a movie a year. Don't
Yeah.
even don't
Right.
even tell
Yeah,
yourself
don't
that.
put
Just-
that pressure
just
on
do whatever you
yourself.
want.
And like
Don't
to
even
me,
do it.
I love the idea of Justice League, but I think unlike Marvel, where on the page, like Marvel's comic book classic series, even if you're looking back at the Silver Age and the Golden Age of Marvel, it was about this city and then this country and then this world covered in these superheroes that were constantly, let's be real, fucking each other and interacting with each other. The DC universe, yes, they all exist, and yes, we all remember the Justice League cartoons when we were kids, but Batman has a very distinct feel.
True.
Superman has a very distinct feel. They're all sort of genres in and of themselves.
Totally.
And to
Absolutely.
me, embracing that, like
Yeah.
really, like Wonder Woman did that.
That's a
Wonder
good
Woman
point.
embraced Wonder
That's a
Woman
good point because-
as this
Totally.
like unique identity.
Because
I wasn't
that-
afraid to
that-
embrace who that is.
That Silver Age, very revolutionary thing that was happening at Marvel in the 60s was the Stan Lee sort of like overseeing everything, the Stan
Right,
Lee, Jack
right.
Kirby Marvel method, where it was like, you're an artist, write up, like drop a thing and I'll pop
Draw a
the words in
crazy
there after.
character
Yeah,
and I'll
I'll
do
drop the
something on
words
it.
in there after, and we're just so producing so many successful characters right now that like we can apply this method to the most unpopular concept, a war profiteer in the early 60s, and we'll be able to sell this to kids and make them a character that people love, and that's Iron Man. So like they were just firing on all cylinders, but there was this Marvel universe sameness to it.
Yeah.
That is cool because they're in the same world. They're in New York, blocks from one another, but it doesn't have that. You're absolutely right. DC had these very different. Swamp Thing was a totally different comic than Doom Patrol was a totally
Right.
different comic than Teen Titans was a
And
totally different
what
comic.
DC has over Marvel in their characters is that a lot of Marvel characters have needed to be injected with gravitas. You need to add this backstory and this, like you need to, as a modern reader and a modern fan, you need to then go and back and go like, oh, he was a war profiteer. Let's build into that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because Iron Man never really dug into that. He just was. Whereas like DC's characters do have, like you watch Christopher Nolan's Batman. I don't care that there's no other superheroes. I don't want any other superheroes.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want Batman. You watch Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman. I don't care what
Right.
happens in Justice
Right,
League.
right,
I want to
right.
know what happens to woman after Chris Pine dies. Like that's
Yeah.
all I care about.
Yeah.
You watch a Superman and like he has enough gravitas as his own character that he doesn't need the crossover.
Right. He doesn't. He's not telling. He's not here because Justice League is going to happen in the
Right.
future. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally and I
He's
totally
here
agree
because he's
with you.
fucking Superman.
Exactly. He's there because he's his own entity. Yeah. That's a
Blue.
great point. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my guy. All right,
We'll
let's
find
move
out.
on.
We'll find out. Next one we're going to talk about is the New Mutants. Delayed by 10 months. Was supposed to come out in April.
Man,
Now it's
this is
coming out in
interesting.
February 2019. There was a lot of sort of discussions as to why this was happening. Mostly, I think Fox's sort of take on it was, well, we don't want our movie New Mutants and Deadpool competing in international markets because there's going to be an overlap of some kind. Deadpool was supposed to come out June 1st. They now bumped that movie up 2 weeks. It's going to be slotted right in between Infinity War and Han Solo.
That's not
which I
good.
think is really interesting.
That's very risky to me.
I think
2 weeks after Avengers,
2
but
weeks
a week
after.
before
but
Star Wars.
but
You
I
put a
have-
movie there because you know it's going to die. That's why you put a
man.
movie there.
Well, here's the thing, though. Memorial Day weekend, right, is
Okay.
the weekend when the Han Solo movie comes out.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fox is looking at sort of the audience's perception of the Han Solo movie generally people
Really?
I think people are there's excitement for the movie, but I think
Yeah.
all of us are like,
Sure.
do we need this movie? Whereas with Deadpool, everybody's like, oh yeah, I cannot wait for another one. And I think it would have been
Do you
death
think
for
this
them.
is counter programming because Deadpool 2 is going to be rated R
Yes,
and Han Solo is going to
totally.
be PG-13?
And
So
I
they're going to
think
be
that-
like,
and I think that's
all
why-
the adults, come on, boys, come see
and
Deadpool.
I think that's why they're not afraid to put it. I mean, if they would have put it a week after Infinity War, they'd be dead. They would never do it.
Yeah.
But to have 2 weeks where you give Infinity War 2 weeks of breathing room, we all know that by 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks, people are kind of like, what's next? You know, we don't really live in that time anymore where people want to see things roll over and roll over and roll
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
If there's nothing else coming out, that happens. But when Infinity War comes out, the first 2 weeks it's going to be the most talked about thing, and then we're going to slowly move into Deadpool, and I think it's going to do fine. I think it may be affected somewhat by Avengers Infinity War, but because it is rated R, it's going to bring in a whole different type of audience. And I think it's going to do something that Avengers Infinity War is going to do, but very different because they're two such complete different movies. And the Han Solo thing, to me, I still think that movie's a question mark. We have not even seen one trailer yet.
You don't think in any way that now that New Mutants is also a Disney movie, that everything was moved around because now the Marvel movies, the Star Wars movies, and the Fox movies are all the same movies. So now there's just not a gap in Disney making any money.
Not really, because that deal is going to technically take 12 to 18 months. So it's still technically Fox.
That's true.
Technically.
But like, if you look at like one of the interesting things to me that I only realized really recently was like, this is the first year where Marvel's releasing 3 movies, and by June there's no more.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then-
July.
Well,
July they have Ant-Man.
Yeah.
But
That's
like
the
by,
first
by
half
the,
of the
by
year.
the middle of the
Yeah.
half of the year,
As
there's
opposed
no
to
more Marvel
2017 was the first year with 3, and it was May, Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
movies. Summer.
July was Spider-Man.
And November.
November was Thor Ragnarok.
Right, because then you own the year. But
Yeah.
now they're saying we're going to own the first half of the year.
Yep.
We already know we own Christmas because we have Star Wars.
Because you have Star Wars, yeah.
What are we plugging
But they
in
don't. But
between?
they don't have Star Wars. Not in 2018. Not this year. That's Han Solo, and they moved it to May.
Yeah.
Oh, they moved it to May.
Han-
Yeah,
Han
there's
Solo-
no Episode 9 coming out
Yeah,
later
well, Han
this
Solo
Christmas.
was always, all these movies were slated for May, but once they had to move Force Awakens by half a year, they ended up kind of moving the episodes.
And
They ended up
Rogue
moving
One
Rogue One
to
also.
Christmas, yeah.
Right.
Han Solo is the one movie that they're like, nope, we're sticking to May, which to me is weird. Like, why are you going to release Episode
I
7,
agree.
8, Rogue One in December, put Han Solo in May, and force it into that date, when really the only thing that's coming out in the winter is Aquaman. And I'm
Sure.
sure there's other movies, like Mary Poppins is coming out and stuff like that, but I'm a little surprised that they didn't put the Han Solo movie in
I'm
December.
very surprised that they did.
Yeah.
Han Solo.
Yeah,
That's
so you've
just-
got May 4th, Infinity War. 2 weeks later, I think it's May 18th, you've got Deadpool, and then on May 24th, you've got the Han Solo
Like
movie.
Disney has crammed all of itself before Comic-Con.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I think-
that's really weird.
And I
think
wonder if
this
that's a
m-
tactical move.
But then Wreck-It
This
Ralph
merge-
2,
this
I
merger
think, is...
definitely is part of the reason.
You think
And
so?
Yeah. Oh,
I don't know,
absolutely,
because
dude.
they've announced these. They announced these dates so long ago that
Right.
I doubt
Well,
that Disney was having discussions.
I
with
got a
Fox at
question
that
because
point.
I have no idea about the logistics of this
Yeah.
of this Disney owning Fox.
Nobody does,
Is there
yeah.
any possible way? And I don't know if this is stupid because it's all money, but is there any possible way that any decision maker at Disney now after this deal is going, let's move Deadpool here so that this Fox movie can die?
That's what I
Do
think
you
is
th-
going to
do you-
happen.
You know, like,
honestly,
but
I
isn't that
wouldn't,
dumb
I
because
wouldn't be
wouldn't that money
surprised.
just go to Disney anyway? I'm
But
I'm confused
I
by
don't
that.
think.
I don't think
they're,
they have
they're
that power yet,
slating,
though.
I don't think they're slating Deadpool so he can die.
No, plus like
No, I think they're
Deadpool's
slating New Mutants so they could die.
Deadpool is a huge. Well, but it's being moved into February of next year.
Yeah.
This year.
Which right now there's nothing competing with it. Captain Marvel doesn't come out till March.
Right.
And then 2019 is Avengers 4 in May. So like there's nothing that's competing with it.
But the question is, are they moving New Mutants not so that they can clear the slate, but so that they can have more control over it, so that they can say, "Hey, if we're getting mutants back,
Yeah.
this is gonna like they can't change Phoenix anymore.
Right.
They can do nothing to Phoenix at this point. So if Disney's going to introduce mutants into the Marvel universe, New Mutants is probably their entree. Do they want to make sure that they have time for reshoots, that they have time to like make it into a something that they can then live with
Sure.
Exactly.
moving forward?
I
Because they
think-
can always keep rebooting.
I think that's possible, but as far as we know, up to now, things like Gambit, things like the Doctor Doom movie, like those are still going to be like Fox movies until stated otherwise. And I don't think we're really going to know the outcome of that until late next year, because of how long that deal takes.
I hate to cynically like you guys are kind of saying, I hate to cynically bring this up, but do you think that it's possible that Disney could be shuffling stuff around, moving stuff around, delaying stuff, maybe even canceling the Doom movie just because in the same way that like if these deals are already set up, Disney with all of its sort of marketing power can at least put this stuff in places to go like, well, look, there's no audience demand for it. It didn't make this amount of money.
I just don't think
so
Disney
people
has
don't
the
want,
power right now.
People don't want these mutants.
I
And then
also
eventually
don't-
like they want these mutants
I
and then
also
bring up their own.
don't think. I think that like I think Disney's smarter than that.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
Why would you not want to capitalize on all these
Right.
things?
I don't think it's
Because
in their
it's not
best
theirs.
interest to.
They
but I-
canceled
True.
cartoon shows as soon as
True,
all the Marvel
even,
stuff went
even
to
if
Disney.
even if they integrate the X-Men into their franchise, it's not going to be for another 2 years.
But it's
Okay.
also better for them to do what they did with Sony with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Knowing that this is a long-term deal, knowing that this is in the pipeline, it's better for them to make handshake agreements with the Fox executives and say, look, you're still making your movie. We're just going to stick our hands in this pie.
Sure.
And we're going to work with you
Sure.
to make this into something that's palatable to us. But then they need more time. That's why I'm thinking, I don't think New Mutants moving, if Disney has anything to do with New Mutants moving, I don't think it's like them forcing it on Fox. I don't think it's like some malevolent plan to make it fail. I think it's more
How
like
can we both benefit from it?
exactly. How do we make this into
Okay,
a movie that
okay.
we're gonna be happy being in our wheelhouse?
Yeah.
How do we work together to do that?
That we can blend it into
So we
the
can
Marvel
blend it
Cinematic
Yeah,
into
because
the
Dark
Universe.
Phoenix,
Yeah.
like you were saying, Dark Phoenix is the movie that it's part 4 or 3 or whatever of this rebooted X-Men franchise. So
It's part 4 of part 8.
exactly.
Part
So it's like if you were to go in
1.
and change that completely to kind of
Yeah.
adapt itself more to fit more into sort of the Disney family, I think it's going to hurt the movie. I think with New Mutants you have the most flexibility. But the most intriguing thing to me about New Mutants is the fact that it's meant to be a horror X-Men movie.
Yeah.
And part of the article that I was reading states that part of the reason why they're saying that they are taking the extra time is because they want to scare it up more. They've been testing the movie; it's been doing pretty well, but they really want to make the movie a lot more scary, which to me is interesting.
Movies like Get Out and It have convinced them.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, let us make this scary.
Yeah.
And hopefully
Maybe they're
it'll
not
still,
afraid to sort of encroach on that R territory.
Like go
There you go.
full
There you go.
full
Full
it
horror.
because that movie was fucking terrifying. It
Really?
scared the shit out of me.
Chris didn't like it.
No.
It scared the shit out of
I
me.
liked both. Get Out is one of my favorite movies of
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
year, and I really liked.
Yeah.
I found neither of them scary.
I found it terrifying. I didn't find Get Out terrifying.
Yeah.
Or scary at all. But
I'm
scared the
scared
shit
of clowns. Like I literally pee myself a little bit if there's a clown at a kiddie party, and I usually then question the parents as to like why they're abusing
Like,
their
what
children.
are you doing?
And it didn't scare me.
All right.
Also, Gambit moved from February to June, and
who
lost its
cares?
director.
All right.
Yep.
This movie is
Moving along.
This movie's never gonna get made, guys.
It's still
Moving
Tatum
along.
Channing.
God.
It's still Tatum Channing.
Yeah.
Still Tatum Channing.
Channing.
It's still Tatum.
Tatum
Channing.
O'Neal Channing. It's still him.
Tatum O'Neal.
Yeah,
I
that
love
movie-
that man, but this is the wrong.
That movie
guy.
is just
It's bad.
dumpster fire.
Oh,
Justice
boy.
League is coming out on Blu-ray. Speaking of Warner Brothers and Justice League, Justice League is coming out on digital HD February 13th. It's coming out on Blu-ray March 13th. I hate the fact that there's such a big fucking gap in between digital and Blu-ray.
There's literally
Oh,
no
I hate
reason
that
to
too.
have that.
It's so irritating to me.
It's
I wish
already
studios-
on
Zero.
digital.
It is, and I wish studios would stop doing that. But the thing that I was super intrigued by, so it's going to have over 11 featurettes. Most of them are going to focus on behind the scenes of, the characters and the mythology and the costume design, all that sort of stuff. It's going to have bonus scenes that were not included in the theatrical cut. The most interesting thing about that is it sounds like they're all based around Superman.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say that is because on the actual Blu-ray itself, it says Superman, I think it says Superman Resurrected or the Resurrection of Superman, bonus scenes, plural, not seen in theaters. And they tease one in the home video trailer, and it's got the Hans Zimmer theme, and it's doors opening up, and it's him in a costume. You can't see what costume it is. A lot of people are already speculating, is it the black and silver one? Is it just him going back to the ship, to remnants of the ship that's in Metropolis and getting the original suit? Do you guys think that we will see this black and silver suit, or what other scenes could they be?
Honestly, this is gonna
don't
sound
know.
mean. I don't know, and I don't care. Like I really, really don't care
It's-
what they show at this point because the proof was in the pudding of what they put out. I'm not interested. I'm not gonna buy this movie.
Sure.
I'm not gonna spend any more minutes of my time watching.
Also, there's
this
no
movie.
extended cut, no ultimate cut, no Zack Snyder
so
cut.
I don't care. I
think it's a real bummer. I feel like, to not have to make this comparison again, but like I got really excited for the home video trailer for the teaser for Ragnarok because it's Taika Waititi running around set. And like the blooper reel, and I'm like, I can't wait to watch that. Like that's gonna be real fun. But this film, I feel like is because of its troubled production. I feel like a lot of behind the scenes material is going to have this sort of vibe of like, well, we're not obviously showing you everything, but like here's what we can kind of show you, and that's just kind of a bummer. So it's
just, why remind me of stuff that could have been? It doesn't matter. Like you didn't put this in the movie, you didn't present this as part of the mythology.
I felt the same way with like the Batman versus Superman Ultimate Cut. When it was like, and now with what was the bad guy's name
45
again?
extra minutes.
Steppenwolf, like the big thing that's talking to Jesse Eisenberg. I'm like, well, that wasn't in the theatrical.
Yeah, I don't care.
Had no place.
They turned 2 movies into 1 movie,
right?
So it all felt shortchanged.
Yeah.
Like Superman was like, it's very clear watching that movie that Superman was supposed to come back at the end of the first movie, and then the next movie was going to deal with turning him back into a good guy and then taking on Steppenwolf. That's not 11 scenes. That's an entire other movie.
That's
missing in order to give all of these characters the emotional arcs that they need to get to where they need to go.
Get over if grieving for somebody and then having them come back to life.
Right.
That's not a small thing.
Or introducing us to Aqua Bro.
Yeah.
Or that.
Plus, I think too is like, I mean, you look at the trailers of Justice League. There is so much material that was cut.
Sure.
I did a video for socials. And it's amazing.
It's like
the amount of footage that's cut out, it's a full trailer.
Yeah. And the bummer thing is like I want to see more of Aqua Bro. I want to see more of Flash, but I don't want to see it in deleted scenes that weren't in this movie. It's like just give me their whole movie so that I can sit with them for 2 hours and be like, Jason Momoa, what's Arthur Curry's deal? Ezra Miller, what's Barry Allen's deal? Cool. Ray Fisher, what is Victor Stone's deal? What's Cyborg's deal? I wanna know about Cyborg. Because I really like those characters, the little glimpses that we got in Justice League. But now I'm like, okay, cool. Give me the whole movie.
You guys know the reason why I buy a movie is for the bonus footage. I have the Lord of the Rings extended cuts and all those things because of that bonus footage.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
But this is one of the movies where I'm just like, guys, I really don't care. Like, I know the backgrounds of Batman and Superman and all that, but the way you're presenting them is just like, you're not giving me enough to chew on.
You know what had really great special features was Wonder Woman. And it had great retrospectives on the history of Wonder Woman. And that's the kind of stuff that, like, there's been lots of Batman movies. There's been lots of Superman movies. There's been lots of great DVD bonus behind-the-scenes content made for those releases. Even, like, Superman Returns. Again, not a great movie. They had, like, a whole documentary about Superman made around that time. You remember that?
Yeah,
and it was, like, its own disc. And that's a great documentary.
See, there you
Wonder
go.
Woman hasn't had any of that stuff yet. So when you get to the Wonder Woman Blu-ray, there's all these incredible actors and writers and Linda
Stunt
Carter
people and
like,
and
artists.
There's the like pre-rendering of No Man's Land.
Yeah.
And that's like crazy.
Yeah. So that was it. So like all that special feature stuff was awesome on that.
Yeah.
Logan had some great stuff too. A great commentary by the director, by Mangold, James Mangold.
I always forget that Logan was last year.
Yeah, man.
That was a damn good movie.
It was a very
Damn good.
very good movie.
Did we vote it best superhero movie of last year?
It was my number one.
I
It
said
was my
Wonder
number one
Woman.
as well.
No,
Yeah.
didn't I say?
You said Wonder Woman.
I said Wonder
Archie's
Woman.
was Logan.
Yeah.
You said
My
Wonder
number 2
Woman,
was Guardians.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Guardians?
But Lego Batman was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, I like Lego
Logan
Batman.
and
last
Wonder
year was
Woman
good.
were my tops.
Yeah.
They were the best.
Good stuff.
Next one we talk about, man, this Venom movie, y'all.
Okay.
This dumpster fire.
We're about to get into this.
Let's talk about
First of all,
this.
they released a picture of Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock.
Tom Hardy as Tom Hardy.
As Tom Hardy, exactly. And I was like, first look, Eddie Brock. And I'm like, ooh, it's Tom Hardy with a notebook. Great.
Well, look.
saying that you're
What's
all gonna get
better?
a shirt, but not like as cool as his.
What's better, Tom Hardy as Tom Hardy or Jared Leto as the Joker?
Tom Hardy is Tom Hardy.
They're already winning.
Yeah. That's a good point.
True. That's a good way to look at it because I think this movie is a dumpster fire.
Yeah, so I was watching Collider Movie Talk, and on that, John Schnepp dropped an exclusive that he obviously couldn't reveal the sources where he got it from, but he did reveal that we were going to see Tom Holland in the Venom movie in some capacity. Now, he later on his show went on into more detail, and he says, we are not going to see Spider-Man, but we're going to see Tom Holland as Peter Parker in some sort of a cameo capacity. Now, he doesn't say exactly if it's going to be in the background of something, if it's going to be front and center, if he's going to have a scene that interacts with Eddie Brock, or anything like that. So we really don't know the capacity of the cameo, what exactly is going on. But he did say that Tom Holland was apparently on set for 2 days shooting something. So how like
When I was a kid,
yeah.
and I saw Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movie, and then like Spider-Man
first
2, the first one, and then like Spider-Man 2. At the end of Spider-Man 2, there's a scene where Mary Jane, Kirsten Dunst, is running through with her wedding dress, and she
you see the
passes a guy that
Punisher.
looks like Thomas Jane, and I'm pretty sure it was Thomas Jane.
It's not. It's
It's
actually
not.
Thomas Jane's stunt double from the Punisher movie.
From the Punisher movie.
And they purposely put him in there, and they
give him a black jacket
yes,
and black
it
pants.
is.
And
That is supposed to be Frank Castle.
so comic book nerds can be like, that's Frank Castle who lives in the world. But Sony didn't have the rights to the Punisher because that was a Lionsgate thing.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, when I was watching these in high school, I was like, you know what they should do? They should have a scene where they write Hugh Jackman with a jacket and a cigar, walks over and bumps into Tobey Maguire and he's like, watch it, bub, and then keeps walking. That doesn't have to be Wolverine. We all know he didn't pop his claws. He's not wearing a costume. There's no other X-Men in the scene. I'm like,
the guy
just
in a
bring
coat with
in
a cigar.
Hugh Jackman because I know that Sony didn't have the rights to Wolverine because that's 20th Century Fox, but it doesn't mean you couldn't ask the actor to blah, blah, blah. That was my kid brain thinking like, that's how you solve it. You give us that little tease and then us nerds will go home and imagine that they actually interacted, even though that'll never happen. And then the Marvel Cinematic Universe was like, but what if?
Hold
we
on,
got
hold
you,
on.
homie. What if they could?
We got you, homie.
But like the unfortunate thing is when I read this, that's what I thought of. Where I was
Yeah.
like, I think that maybe I'm wrong, but I think that the Marvel Sony deal is a lot more sort of complex and maybe like black and white than we think. There's not as much sharing. Like I think it's Marvel Studios has the rights to Spider-Man. And when I say Spider-Man, I think that also includes Spider-Woman, Spider-Gwen, Spider this, Spider that
Any
for
spider
live action.
hyphen.
For live action, what does Sony do? They make an animated movie, which is not set in any of these universes. So I think that's a loophole project. And what else does Sony do? We're going to make a movie starring your favorite female characters from the Spider-Man universe. Black Cat and Silver Sable. I'm like, what? Why not Jessica Drew Spider-Woman? Why not Spider-Gwen? Why not any of these characters?
Because they don't have the
Spider-Gwen's
spider
stupid.
hyphen.
But
I think so. And I feel like this is Sony going, okay, Marvel, yeah. We're not doing it. We're not going to do Spider-Man. Don't worry. We're going to do Venom. It'll be another thing. We're not going to do Spider-Man. Tom Holland, get over here.
And
You were
here's
in
Carnage.
you're in this Sony movie. We got you under contract. You're going to show up, and we'll maybe say that you're Peter, and that's it, or whatever. Like that's what I think is going to happen.
That's such
I-
a huge disservice, though.
I also think that like, look, that was a very long, complicated deal, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's got nuances that they don't even understand anymore because they fired and hired everybody since then. But I don't think Sony, like, I think Sony was trying to save Spider-Man. They knew they needed to save Spider-Man. They knew allowing him to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was a way to do that while still being able to profit share from it. I don't think they signed him over.
Okay.
Like
No, it's
Sony
50-50.
owns Spider-Man,
Yeah.
and there is a very clean profit sharing thing,
Yeah.
so that like Sony gets a percentage of Infinity of Civil War. It's probably very small, but Sony makes money on Civil War, Marvel makes money on Spider-Man: Homecoming,
Yeah.
and everybody kind of
But
wins.
the,
and
but
it's
the
one of
major
those
profits go
deals.
the opposite direction.
Right, and
Yeah.
it's one of those deals that like nobody thought studios would ever do
Right.
until they did it.
Yeah.
And so I think Sony absolutely has the rights to put Spider-Man in Venom, but if they want to make it Venom focused, it's much. I think it probably is in their best interest not to, but just to be like, hey, he's part of it,
Right.
Yeah.
and like.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
loosely even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I think also, a lot, and this movie, I guess, when it was greenlit as an R-rated Venom movie. But until the movie actually comes out, and based on whatever internal conversations they've had, maybe they've kind of reconsidered it and they're retooling. They're saying, look, we can push this PG-13 as far as we can. Maybe let's keep it in PG-13 territory, though, because then it'll allow us that flexibility to bring in Spider-Man, or even if it's just Peter Parker, to let the audience know, like, yeah, this is a Venom movie, and it's all about Eddie Brock as Venom, but we just want you to have an understanding that Spider-Man can show up in the future. And I think that's kind of what Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige were talking about when they were talking about, the sharing part of Spider-Man.
Okay.
It's a little bit of that, of like, Amy Pascal has never said, well, no, neither of them have said this is not connected to the MCU, but they have very much said that we're making our movies, Marvel Studios is making their movies. And I think also for Sony as a studio, they've been hurting for a lot of years. Their
Absolutely.
profits and
Yeah.
sort of their
The
business
hacks
model
didn't help.
It's not been working. Spider-Man: Homecoming and Jumanji have kind of been their saviors of this year. Those are the movies that have really profited them the most. But I read an article, and one of the chairman of Sony was saying, look, it's very possible that we could get into we may get into we may come to a certain point where we are going to be acquired by some studio because
Disney.
yeah, because we are having a hard time profit. We're having a hard time making profit.
God.
Yeah.
And this Spider-Man thing, having that be a possibility where Sony can put Tom Holland's Peter Parker into it and leaving that sort of window open, if Sony would go to a company like Disney, great. Put Venom in the MCU. You
Sure.
can totally tie it together.
All right, Sony, you better make that Uncharted movie soon. You better make that Crash Bandicoot movie.
Ugh.
Hopefully that are Sony Tomb Raider. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking about all the
Yeah.
PlayStation
They're
games.
PlayStation
What could
movies.
you
All
what could you
play-
make a
all
movie all the
PlayStation
PlayStation, all the hit
There is a
PlayStation
Tomb Raider
games.
movie with Alicia Vikander.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
and that's
another one,
Sony
but that
Pictures.
doesn't
I
look
think
great
it's
either.
Sony and Warner Brothers partnered on that
Probably.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
look, I feel like people are very quick to be like, this studio puts out shitty movies and therefore they're going under.
Right.
And like that's why they're gonna. Movies are dying, and it has very little to do with how shitty movies are. Like even great movies, like Get Out is a great movie.
Yeah.
They spent 3 or 4 times more money, more millions and hundreds of millions of dollars marketing Get Out than they spent making Get Out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And that is
absolutely.
if you spend $10 million on a movie as a studio, you're spending $50 million marketing
Yeah.
it. If you spend $100 million on a movie, you're spending $500 million marketing it. And like, because people just don't go to the movies anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
People
attendance.
and people want them for free, and people want them to be streamed on a big platform where they're paying a monthly fee for a million movies and not
Yeah.
paying for one movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not taking into it. They don't like
You're bumming
people
me
are
out,
too
Cruz.
disconnected from the fact that like yes, it's $16 for you, but that $16 is paying 500 people that are making this movie
Yeah.
over the course of a year,
Or
if
two
not or
sometimes.
two
Yeah.
sometimes.
To make it this big and this epic.
And even small movies, they're paying
Yeah.
100 people over the course of a month. That's
Totally.
still a lot of people whose entire full-time job it is.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's just an industry that's suffering a lot from the fact that, like, outside of Marvel and outside of maybe Star Wars, Paramount and Universal and Sony and Fox, every single time they make a movie, they have to. It doesn't matter that you might have watched every Paramount movie there was this year in a movie theater. They still have to go get you again.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
no way
That
of.
doesn't change. Yeah.
They have no way. Marvel has, because it's a cinematic universe.
They got you.
They got you.
They got that
Yeah.
loyalty.
They have that
instantly.
loyalty.
Yeah.
But with a
Pixar
studio,
might have that
Pixar
loyalty.
maybe. Right,
Yeah.
but with a majority of studios, they have to start over and over,
Yep.
and the marketplace just doesn't allow that. There's so
Yeah,
much on
I agree.
Netflix. There's so much on Hulu and Amazon. There's so much television. There's so many video games. There's so many comics. There's so many books. That,
The market
are
is so
easily
saturated.
accessible
It's saturated.
That like the fight to get you in a movie theater is too expensive.
But that's the thing, though. People are not watching content. People are watching more content than ever.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
just the actual theaters that
Yeah.
are suffering the most, and that they're saying there's a 7% last year. That was the last quote that I saw. 7% decline in theater viewership. I'm like, duh. Like
Right, but
Hulu.
but 90-minute movie, 90-minute to 124-hour movies. Unlike the majority of other content, the majority of studios' money was coming from theatrical distribution and home movies.
Yeah.
The home movie market died 5 to 6 years ago. It died when Netflix started shipping Blockbuster. Like when Netflix killed Blockbuster and VHS and DVD stopped selling, that market died. That was 50% of a movie's profits.
Yeah.
When theatrical started dying, that's basically 30% of a movie's
Yep.
profits. So
Yep.
you're making money out of like minor licensing deals to Netflix, which aren't making you $500 million back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
International, like movies have been made for an international audience for the last 5 to 10 years, and now those markets are suffering
Yeah.
from not
Yeah.
having like from Netflix, from streaming, like their
Yeah.
internet getting pulled up, and they're not going to the movies either. So China can't save every movie.
Yeah.
And Dubai can't save every movie. So literally the business of a 90-minute to 120-minute story is suffering from a YouTube demonetization. Like
Yeah.
nobody knows how to make money
Adpocalypse.
off of
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't matter how good the movie is.
Yeah.
So
Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
I really liked it, but everyone, even the people that worked on it, they're like, it was too long. It was too long.
it was too long.
It was too long. And I loved every minute of it, but like the people that made it were like, yeah, it was too fucking long, and that's why it didn't make money.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
Because
Bummer.
people, they're like, how long is this movie? Oh, I'm not gonna leave the house. I'm not
Yeah.
it's a 3.5 hour movie. I'm not leaving the house.
Well, that's why like I totally understand why a company like Warner Brothers really wants to build a platform where, day one of theatrical release, you can actually be at home and just download it to your box and watch it. I get it.
Yeah.
But fuck.
It's a bummer, dude.
I love going to the theater and watching movies.
Yeah, there's a
and I get
certain-
it. The type of person that like I am, that we are,
Yeah.
it's a dying breed.
Yep.
Everybody wants to be on their phone watching a fucking movie. And like I may hate it, but I'm not the age where I was brought up on that. Everyone
Right,
else brought up on
exactly.
phones, tablets, and computers.
Yeah.
You're old
sucks.
school now, Adam.
Look, I don't
You're
think
old
movie
school now.
theaters are gonna die. Like,
I don't think they're gonna
they're
die.
gonna be like a niche
vaudeville
thing.
still exists,
Yeah.
right? But like,
It's so depressing.
It does.
but like, there's still movie theaters in America where you can go and have a live orchestra score the movie. Like,
Yeah.
they're really rare, but they
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're special events, but like they're already special events.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
the majority of people, some of us are the exception. I like waking up Sunday mornings, like trekking myself to the Grove,
Yeah.
eating like some
Sunday
shitty
morning movie
breakfast,
crew.
and
Yeah.
like watching a movie by myself.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
But
love that.
The majority of people trek to a movie like Girls Trip.
Yeah. Girls Trip.
Girls Trip was fucking hilarious, but also killed in the box office.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just because it was better representation, which is great, but it was also because it's a movie that like you go see with your girlfriends.
Yep.
It's
to
an event.
fucking laugh at.
an event,
because
yeah.
you can then go get drunk afterwards and like have fun or get high
Yeah.
and like have dinner.
Yeah.
And Marvel movies are the same. Like you go to the movie theater because you're gonna take your friends with you, you're gonna take your family with you, so you
It's a
can
social
all talk
event.
about
That's
it.
Yeah.
half the fun because we get to go together and like
Yeah.
we geek out together.
The second the
and it's
movie
a
ends,
thing.
we're outside of the theater talking about it for
Yeah.
like 20 minutes.
But yeah,
and
man,
that
it's
will
like,
always be there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that there will always be a space for that.
Yeah.
It's just not going to sustain AMC 75 theater complex.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, a lot of these other movies that come out, I think there are certain directors that for the most part will be able to kind of get over that hurdle, like your Christopher Nolans and stuff. But there are certain directors where it's like, you're not going to, like, to me, Get Out, as good as it is, to me, it like wasn't a big sort of event type of a movie. Like people individually went to go see it and then they talked about it, but it wasn't something like, I'm getting the gang together, we're all going to go watch
Like,
Get Out.
Day
Yeah.
it comes out.
I mean,
It's not
life
that
in the
thing.
theater.
I'm
sure.
embarrassed to say it, but every Oscar-worthy movie that I've loved this year, I watched the screener.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
saw it on video.
Like,
yeah, didn't
Because
go
I
to the
get
theater.
those, and I'm lucky enough to get those. But
Yeah.
like,
I saw Get Out. I
didn't
saw
go to
Shape
the
of
theater.
Water. That's it. Coco. That's it. Like everything else. Yeah, I'm watching
Yeah.
it now because now that stuff's out on digital or
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
screener or whatever. That's how
Yeah.
I'm watching it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
it's
thing.
tough. It's tough. I'm really curious to see sort of how the landscape evolves and how these companies and how these studios and maybe even the theaters try to work in some sort of an
I
event. But
think-
like it doesn't apply for every movie.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to be maybe a rough period where they learn how to adapt. Like they haven't changed in decades.
Yeah.
So maybe
That's
it's,
true.
Maybe it's time to change.
Yeah, and who knows?
It's time to
It's
come up with something.
Always been part of the conversation to make
Yeah.
like, okay, a bigger budget movie will be $15.
Right.
An indie is $8.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, those kinds of ideas.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
like
change-
it
You
shake
might
got to
it up.
experiment.
It might get desperate enough where that's
Yeah.
what's going to
Exactly.
I mean, they're already talking about doing that.
Yeah.
Except doing the opposite of charging you for $40 to go see Spider-Man, and $8 to go see like Call Me by Your Name.
Right.
Yeah.
Go
But-
see Get Out. Yeah.
But like, it's partially that they need to change.
They do.
Yeah.
I
need to
do
change.
100%
Yeah.
think that that's part of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important that like we continue to talk to people who love watching movies and who love watching television, that they can't just keep getting it for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
That there are two ways that this business runs off of, and it's not giant conglomerates that are trying to make billions of dollars. It's human beings doing jobs who are trying to do more work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that the only way that those things are sustained, and that goes from everything from making YouTube videos all the way up to making Avengers Infinity War,
Yeah.
is that you have two choices. You pay for it, or you let advertisers pay for it.
Exactly.
When you let advertisers pay for it, they have the ability to censor and control and change the story
compromise,
to make it something that they're happy with, Dove soap being on.
Yeah. And if you pay for it,
but that's the only option if you don't pay for it.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay for it, they have to pay for it. But
Exactly.
somebody's got to pay everyone's
Yeah.
salary.
The bill comes due. What do we learn? What do we learn in Doctor Strange? The bill comes due.
well, and I think we've fortunately or unfortunately we've sort of nurtured this new generation through things like YouTube and even Twitch to some extent, where
that's what we're doing
the
here.
the expectation is that I should just be able to go on YouTube.com, search for Justice League review, and
it's
just
free.
watch everybody.
But it's not free.
Yeah.
The
not.
advertiser is paying
Yeah,
for
exactly.
it. And every time you put ad blocker on, another YouTuber stops making videos.
Yes.
It's like the opposite of It's a Wonderful Life.
Because-
the
because-
fairy fucking dies.
Guys, to do everything that we do here,
Sure.
the amount of money it costs to
lights.
run one show,
Right there.
it's insane. I had a meeting
Yeah.
with Zach last night about a project, and I thought I had numbers that were correct, and he's like, "No, it's a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Even in this house with all this gear that
Yeah.
all these talented everyone that works here, who works behind the scenes gets paid. People like all these RPGs, everything has to get paid for." And I think the biggest problem that we've run into in the last 10, 15 years because of things like YouTube and all these other platforms is the expectation is you either pay one lump sum for all this fucking content or you pay nothing. And
but don't run ads on it.
exactly. And it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Right.
In this sort of world.
The
Because then
expectation
we
is
suffer.
the expectation is all of this content should be free if there are a couple of upstanding citizens that are willing to pay a bunch of money so that everybody can enjoy it for free.
Yeah.
Except that those individuals do not exist. That you
They're
cannot continue to
far
rely.
and few, and it's like they can't do it on a weekly, monthly basis,
Right.
Because then,
Yeah.
they're gonna be broke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Kickstarter will
mentality
work
goes
once,
all
but-
the way up
Yeah.
to Batman. Like
Yes.
it goes all the way up to comic books. It goes all look, I love comic books, and yes, I still read single
Yes.
issues, and they're expensive. Like I have to make a decision in my own personal budget
Yeah.
to prioritize comic books over going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
Or like having more Starbucks coffee. But like I make that prioritization, and I'm not gonna whine that it went from $2.99 to $3.99 because life has gotten more expensive. Inflation is a
Absolutely.
real thing. $3.99 is still cheap, and one of those 22 page issues is like 5 people's full-time job.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And $3.99 is not paying all 5 of their salaries.
Yep.
Right.
No.
So
But
like,
also if you're debating about that $1 change, maybe you should reprioritize where you're spending your money.
right. Meanwhile, people are still buying a $6 Starbucks coffee every
Exactly.
single morning and
Exactly.
going like, oh, that's annoying.
Yeah.
But no one's going like, this coffee should be free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. No.
Yeah.
Put an ad on the coffee.
You're like shooting daggers at people right now.
I know.
But I completely agree with you,
Yeah.
and I've gotten in these arguments with people all the time about it, and they're like, it happened to us on YouTube all the time
Sure.
where people are like, I shouldn't have to pay for your content. Then why the fuck am I giving it to you? For what reason? Like I'm doing it because I'm passionate about it, but at the same time, like I'm never gonna make a dime off of it if the expectation is like, well, you should be giving it to me for free.
Yeah.
It's like,
Fuck
well, then in
you.
that case,
Right,
I
look-
got to go get a 9 to 5, and
Yeah.
I'll get to this when I get to
But
it.
also,
sorry.
look, my dentist is a dentist because he loves it.
Yeah.
I'm.
You still
I
pay
hope-
for his service.
Like, correct. It's not like just because he's getting personal fulfillment from
Yeah.
like
Right.
beautiful smiles and that makes him happy in his
Yeah.
life doesn't mean I get to pay him in happiness.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
he
he
still-
doesn't profit off your happiness.
Right, and he does, and like the fact that profit has become a bad word. Like like my dentist making money is not about him like Scrooge McDucking.
Right.
It's
It's
about
good for
paying-
him. He went to school for it for 8 to 12
If you're
years.
and he has
good
to
at
pay
something,
rent, and he has
never
to eat,
do
and he
it
has
for
to.
free.
his
Probably
kids-
has an office full of people that he's
Yeah.
sustaining
And
their
he's-
lives
right.
with what the money
The
he's
Joker
making.
said it best, Hector.
If you're good at something, never do it for
Never
free.
do it
Guys,
for
we just
free.
came up with a YouTube video that we'll probably get paid for by advertisers where we make that joke about like how YouTube commenters would treat like real businesses in real life, and we'll just shoot us going to your dentist,
dentist.
and be like, oh, thanks.
thanks.
Yeah, I know, right?
And you
That
just
would
go
be a
like
good one.
this. Like,
Because I'm
like for
happy,
that.
dude.
I'm happy.
Yeah, that was good.
I mean,
Here's
look,
the
to
bill.
be fair, the last time I went to my dentist, I was like, it's too expensive, man.
Well, I
it's
stopped
tough.
going to my
It's
dentist
tough,
because it
man.
was too
It-
expensive.
yeah, I mean, it's like
Yeah.
we live in a world where everything's getting more expensive. We know
Yeah.
firsthand living in Los Angeles. It is not cheap to live here.
Not at all.
Yes, there are plenty of other places in the United States where we could do this for a lot cheaper. But then we lose the access to a lot of things that we need to have access
Like
to in order
Michael
to do this.
Cruz as coming as a guest.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I don't want him to Skype in.
Exactly.
We're like
This is the best city in the world,
Oklahoma.
and I will never leave it.
Exactly. Last topic of the night.
We got one more
Let's
topic.
jump into this.
There's some good conversations.
Yeah.
Really good conversations. The Black Widow solo movie. The movie that everyone's been asking for.
Yeah.
For
19
many
movies?
years.
For 19
I,
movies.
Yeah.
I stopped asking for this.
Stopped asking for it. It
'Cause it was
finally,
not happening.
because I was like, it's never gonna happen.
yeah, it finally got a writer. The writer, Jack Schaefer, she is going to be penning I guess we can call it at least a draft of this script. And she had a meeting with Kevin Feige. She's going to be having a meeting with Scarlett Johansson sometime next month. And I think a lot of this, truthfully, a lot of this came out of a lot of things that we saw and heard where we had Scarlett Johansson, Tessa Thompson, Brie Larson, all these actresses from the MCU going, when are we going to get our solo movies?
Yeah.
And I think that's
When are
great.
not
Amazing.
Chris is gonna get their own?
Exactly. I think that's so. I think it's amazing, and I like for me personally. Some people have had problems with Scarlett Johansson's portrayal of Black Widow. I happen to think that she's great. I think she's had highs and lows.
really
I thought,
won me over,
I
yeah.
thought she was really
Yeah.
strong in movies like Winter Soldier, even Avengers to some extent.
I think the flaws in Black Widow's character have been in the writing because I
Yes,
think
I
most
agree.
people's problems with Black Widow happen around Avengers 2.
Yes.
when it starts feeling like Joss Whedon is basically making her hop around sleeping with everybody.
Yeah,
and that's
Exactly.
not on Scarlett. That's on the writer.
exactly. I'm one of those people who's still like, well, what happened in Budapest? I want to know.
Yeah.
They remember very differently. What
Yeah.
was that story?
And I also can point to like I didn't like the character that much in Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Written by Justin Theroux, directed by Jon Favreau, but even Joss Whedon's work with Scarlett's character in the first Avengers, I really liked. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is very different. She was a very different, way more capable character. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this is awesome. And again, Winter Soldier is probably like the highlight for that
so great in
character,
that
for this
movie.
sort of like still that great scene that there was that sort of flirtatious moment with her and Steve. There was a couple, but they were still co-workers, and you
Yeah.
felt that
Right.
throughout the thing.
They
and
just
she-
happen to both be really hot.
They just have they're just like some of the most
That's what happens
gorgeous
when people are
humans
that hot.
Yeah.
Like,
ever.
yeah.
Um,
It's like in the
There's
Olympics.
a part of you that's like maybe no.
Yeah.
It's like in the Olympics,
Yeah.
they hand out condoms to the condos full of athletes because
they're
they're
all-
all fucking each other.
They're all super hot.
They're
just
super
like,
hot
hey,
people
hey,
with
here you
athletic
go.
bodies
Here's a
hanging
box.
out, and yeah,
They
exactly.
also get
you know
no
what's gonna
sleep,
happen.
so they're like,
Well,
"Damn, I
there you
got it."
go. There you go. That's what happens in superhero communities as well.
I can't. There's no reason why this movie shouldn't have already happened or should happen in the future.
Right.
I think that whatever these talks, whatever the success of Wonder Woman, whatever the shift is culturally, that people and these big companies are becoming aware of what audiences want and are demanding. Whatever the case may be, good, fine. Great. I think that an awesome Black Widow movie could happen. I think it'd be cool if it was a flashback type stuff, but I also think it would be cool if it was just like a present day. Even Scarlett
Yeah.
was throwing out ideas like
Yeah.
Black Widow goes undercover after
Right.
she goes underground after Captain America: Civil War. What
Right.
happens to that character?
What is
then?
she doing
There's
now?
great comic books. You just look to the comics because Black Widow's always been this sort of Avenger character.
Yeah.
But anytime she's gotten her own miniseries or series, it's awesome, and she's just this incredibly badass, capable spy. She's the James Bond of this world,
Yeah.
Right.
even more than Nick Fury really ever was,
Yeah.
even from sort of back in the day.
Yeah.
So the potential for this could be awesome, and another great opportunity for Marvel to go, let's really lean into a different genre. Let's do like
Yeah.
a Munich style political,
Hardcore spy thriller.
And
like-
look, the last
Oh,
time
damn.
they touched the political spy genre, they got Winter Soldier.
They got Winter
Yeah,
Soldier.
it
So
was great.
if Captain America, he's in that world, but if Captain America is going to be ending because Chris Evans is ending his contract, whatever, and if Captain America is going to be in the Avenger world going forward, fine. Who's going to take up that mantle of that spy thriller, the political spy thriller? It's Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett
it's Black
Johansson.
Widow.
Yeah, she had a
Natasha
great
Romanoff.
run in Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Do you remember that one?
Oh, she was an
Her and
awesome
Hawkeye.
character.
She was an amazing.
Yep.
Have you seen that
No.
cartoon?
Great cartoon.
amazing cartoon. I highly suggest.
And
you watch
like, despite Jack Schaefer having written one of the things that I hate most in the world,
Which is,
I
gotta
actually
point
think
out,
she's a very, very good writer.
the Disney short Olaf's Frozen Adventure. But
So
she
you
also
knew of all of the things she's written.
It was
That's
that?
the thing I hate
Yes,
most in the world.
because the other two things haven't come out yet. Apparently, she's
I've read them.
she's the writer of the up and coming movie The Shower.
Yeah, which is a really cool, very
shower.
interesting premise. It's I think it's a baby shower or bridal shower, and at the same time, simultaneously, an alien invasion happens.
Oh, that's cool.
Anne Hathaway
Interesting.
read the script, and she was like, "Oh, I gotta be in this.
That's
I'm gonna
great.
Make this."
The
Yeah.
other thing
amazing.
It
she's
reminds
writing-
me of what's the movie where they're having a house party and then the end of the world happens? This is
the end of the world.
This is the end. Yeah.
This is the end. It's like this is the end. And if it's a baby shower or a bridal shower, it seems like it's going to be female centric. You've got Jack Schaefer. She's a woman, and the other cool thing that she is writing is the remake of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, the Steve Martin movie, that is going to be called. And I think this is the most amazing name ever. Like this is the perfect name, Nasty Women.
Also with Anne
It's
Hathaway.
perfect.
Oh,
It's perfect. So like
interesting.
those two, even just hearing about those two projects makes me excited for like, let's have this type of writer tackle Black Widow. Let's see what we get, and then go forward. So
I agree.
I love Anne Hathaway, guys. Even though everyone hates her because she comes off like that friend who's always trying too hard to get you to like them, and like kind of reads false. I think she's a very nice person.
She's a very good actor,
She's a
and I think
very
she was
good
perfectly
actor.
cast because they're leaning into that. She's going to be like the villain, maybe, of Ocean's 8.
Yeah, she
Perfectly
Interesting.
cast.
Look, we also once went to junior prom, and she's pretty great.
Really?
Wait, you know her personally?
I mean, I knew her when I was 17.
I mean,
I
that's
don't
still
know her
knowing her
personally.
personally. You still knew her
Things have
personally.
changed.
I knew her when I was 17 for one night.
Oh!
Junior prom.
Junior prom.
A very family-friendly junior.
Yeah.
Very
I heard she was really nice. I've been a fan of Hathaway's. She won me over in Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah.
Because that was the first movie that I saw her
Not
coming
Princess
out of.
Diaries?
No, man. Because Princess Diaries, I was like, cool. Like it's like a kid movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Brokeback Mountain, she was like such a good actor doing a tough role
For
in
me,
that.
it was Devil Wears Prada, and I don't know if that came
So good.
before or after.
It was,
That came
I think
after.
It was
Yeah.
after.
Okay.
It was after.
Yeah,
but
it
really-
was her and Emily Blunt
Yeah,
that
really
I was
great.
like, oh shit, these are great actors.
Great
Yep.
actresses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm looking forward to
Any
it.
final thoughts on the Black Widow movie?
Yeah, man.
Just make it.
Just
Make
fucking,
it.
just fucking.
make
It's
it.
about fucking
Make it.
time.
Make it.
Just
do
make it.
Just do it.
We're gonna say Black Lightning for another episode.
Because I have
Because
not seen it yet.
Yeah.
You've
me
just
neither.
seen it. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. Augustine, you haven't seen it yet.
I've
Cruz, you haven't
seen
it yet.
the return of all the DC shows, except I haven't seen.
Oh, really? Okay.
Adam,
Have all the
one-
rest of them came
one
back?
gesture.
well, the ones
review.
that have aired.
I will say,
gesture review?
really loved it.
Okay.
Really great. It's really
Okay,
great.
great. I have been looking forward to this one since they announced it.
Yeah, I've been hearing nothing but good
And
things.
I have a feeling it's going to be my favorite of the CW
Yeah.
DC shows, and I really like most of them.
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
like I love the Flash, I love Supergirl. I'm in it for Legends of Tomorrow, and I saw this, and I saw the trailers, and I was like, this is going to be awesome. I've been rereading the new Black Lightning series that's been put out by DC by the original creator of Black Lightning from back in the day. He's coming back, and it's a cool. I read like the first 2 issues, and they're great. I really dug it. It's modern. It's cool.
Yeah, I will say it's the most mature CW superhero movie.
That clip you
It's-
played,
it's
that
like-
clip you showed,
Yeah.
it was a great
Yeah.
clip.
Yeah,
It's
that
like
was a good
some. I watched it and I'm like, man, I'm surprised like that CW was okay with this. I would have imagined this going straight to like Netflix or something a little bit more like
Well,
adult oriented.
You know what it reminded me of is,
so
is
great.
the other prominent black superhero character show is Luke Cage,
Mm-hmm.
and I really liked Luke Cage. I especially loved the first half.
I think you're gonna like this more.
Here's the thing. Here's the
Interesting.
difference between these two characters. Okay, there absolutely needs to be there isn't a limiting room of just we can only have one black superhero. There's not. And the proof is that these two characters, this is how different they are. Luke Cage is in his show up to this point not married, doesn't have kids. This dude likes to have coffee. That's a different vibe than
Like some
family
hot-ass coffee.
than family
Yeah.
drama, which is what the CW excels at. Even when
Yeah.
characters aren't related, they create families in each of their shows. The Legends of Tomorrow are a family.
Yeah.
The Team Flash is a family. Team Arrow is a family.
The
Supergirl-
Runaways, all family oriented.
Yeah, but that's not DC
I know,
Warner Brothers.
I
But
know,
still,
but
but
still.
still,
Yeah.
It's still family
and that's
style.
still like PG-13 or even for younger kids in that world. That like this Luke Cage at times was rated R.
Yeah.
Luke Cage
Yeah.
is hard PG-13, where this is an adult male character and stuff that they're saying, and that's awesome. I love that vibe. I love the show. But here you have Black Lightning, where it's like he's the father though of this family, and I
Yeah.
want to see the family superhero.
And I
drama.
love that. The reason why I loved it so much was it gave the show, it made it so mature, but it felt very real and it felt very relevant.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun because you'll have to watch it. Just trust me on it. Watch
like-
it. It's really really
Can't
good.
wait.
All of the what's interesting is like all of the DC shows on CW, they're even the ones that are adults in the sense that they're in their early 20s and they're in the workforce, they're all kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
They all have parents they have to interact with.
Yes.
Even when Arrow comes back from Liam
He has a
Liam
mom.
Yu in the first one, his mom, and like all that. Like they're always on the younger end of that family spectrum. So it's good to get the opposite.
Yes.
I also need something to replace Arrow because God, that's over. I'm sorry, Stephen Amell. I love you, Stephen Amell. You're amazing.
Yeah, Black Lightning is
Jesus,
like if you were to
it's
watch The Flash from Joe West's perspective. It's
Nice.
Great.
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 Yeah, I really
Good to
liked
hear.
it.
Good to hear.
Awesome.
So I'll
Cool.
make time out of my day tomorrow to watch it.
It goes by really quick. I started it and I was like, oh, it's already over. Damn.
Yeah,
I wish
that's
it was,
good.
I wish it was longer.
All
That's
right.
a good sign.
Mike, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank
buddy.
you for
It was a
having
good
me.
show.
Cruz,
It was
this
fun
was a
time.
Cruz.
You
This
dropped
was
some
fun.
knowledge.
I know,
Yeah.
dude. Good
Some
perspective
goodies.
because we get into our like talking circle, but it's good to hear somebody else who has different perspective on things. Like
Agreed,
that.
yeah.
What do you want to plug? Social media or anything that people can check
Yeah,
out
man,
where they
what
can
can people
find
look
you?
at?
More conversations.
You can find me on all the platforms. I'm Mike Crucible, or you can find me on all things Skybound every day.
Every day. Agustin.
You can find me at @L_Santo Taco Twitter. That's it.
Hector.
You can find me on the internet at Hector is Funny. Sometimes I am. Check out that podcast that I was talking about earlier. It's called the 500 Greatest Films Podcast. It's on iTunes and it's on Podbean. We're going to put it up on some stuff later. The upcoming episode
Today
is
Friday.
on Monday, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Ooh.
Which is number 400. That's the best movie so far. It was great. We did Ocean's 11, Saw, the first Saw, Back to the Future Part 2, and now we're at Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and it was amazing compared to these other.
Nice.
Burn
46
whoever
or-
made this
What's that?
list.
Huh?
You need burn this
you need to
list.
see this.
It's
list.
10,000
it's an
people.
interesting
I'll
look
send you
at
the
it.
list. It's
this
pretty
is
hilarious.
496?
Yes, this is number 496.
Wow.
The week after that's going to be 495, Superman Returns,
Uh-huh.
with our friend Emma Fife. So that's going to be great. Great little discussion. And then stay tuned for Halloween for Halloween with
in
Adam
10 months.
Halloween.
and Amor Esperos in the couple. And I'm going to send you the list, Cruz, so you can come and be a guest. and
Also,
you can
start
pick a movie.
listening now because in 10 years,
Yeah.
The Godfather guys.
That's
And
right.
you will be-
Get hooked now because you got some
Tentatively.
time.
yeah.
Start the countdown in your on your laptop.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
10-year countdown.
We'll just have to make a little webpage for
Yeah.
you or something.
Absolutely.
You can just find me at Adam Havoc on all social platforms. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.